Good morning, everybody. What's up? I hope you had your coffee for today. If you haven't, my suggestion is going to be to go to blackriflecoffee.com and check out what they have to offer. I'm on the site right now. First thing I'm looking at is the May 1st ECS blend. It's called We're Not Here. There may be a picture of Nixon on the bag with what appears to be a panda shooting an M60. Classic pairing, really. And if you're not into the ECS thing, but you do like coffee, I mean, shit, you can go on there and you can put a subscription together and get just about any type of coffee you want, at any interval you want, delivered to where you want it, which to me is exactly what I'm looking for when it comes to coffee. They also have apparel. They have things you can make coffee in, things you can drink coffee out of. Really, everything you could possibly need. So go to blackriflecoffee.com and explore the space. My guest for today, guests, I need to say, plural. One of them is a repeat guest, Nelson Grant. We'll get back to him. He brought in, though, a good friend of his, Paul Evancoe, who is a police officer in Orlando, Florida. Currently, full-time training instructor for his agency, as well as an active 14-year veteran of the SWAT Team. He has experience working in narcotics, the Tactical Anti-Crime Unit, and he also trains jiu-jitsu regularly, which really separates him from Nelson, because Nelson quit jiu-jitsu, as anybody who listens to the podcast knows. Paul talked about quite a few things on this episode. One of the things we got into in depth was the Pulse nightclub shooting. He was one of the first people to be on site, and his description of what happened there is unbelievable. As far as Nelson Grant goes, you guys know who he is. He's a Renaissance man of Montana. He has far too many hobbies to actually be good at any one of them. He's a sheriff's deputy and a retired blue belt in jiu-jitsu. And I think that probably sums it all up. Let's get into this. Episode number 282 with Nelson Grant and Paul Evancoe.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run, north or south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. Get cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
All right, bitches. What do you guys want to talk about?
Your reading collection here, it looks like you've been after it.
That is not necessarily a reading collection. Those are the books that authors have brought in that they wrote. And sometimes they bring in more than one. So there's a couple repeats in there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I had a guy on last week, and he brought I had one of the books. He brought me two of the same book that I had, and then another one that he wrote. So the stack grows rapidly.
Yeah.
Of repeats.
Should do a sweet bookshelf in here.
It's funny that you mentioned that because there's a bookshelf on order that gets here on Thursday, but it's not going to go there because there's no room where you just pointed. I don't know why you would point there. It's going to go over here off camera.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Give the ambiance.
Yeah.
Right.
An easy selection.
Why don't you leave the design ideas to me, okay?
10-4.
All right, tough guy.
Now, Nelson's been giving me the full Montana experience out here since I got in last week.
What exactly does that mean?
Like winter sports, snow sports, stuff I can't do in Florida, for sure. So
yeah, but in Florida, you can ride a motorcycle in flip-flops with no helmet.
that's correct.
I actually...
End up on Andy's Instagram.
100% that's going to happen. Can we do that in Montana, too? Is there helmet law?
There's no helmet law.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
That is a self-critiquing piece of legislature.
We see
my
it
mind.
so often.
Is there
Really?
helmet laws
Yeah,
in
all the
Florida?
time. No,
I mean, that makes sense, I guess.
no.
No, you think I'm joking when I say that? 98% of the videos of people riding dirt bikes on a freeway in shorts, barefoot, with no helmet is where he works.
Was it your page that I saw that female standing on a motorcycle doing stunts, and she just eats it? She's like up off the bike, standing
chance.
on her seat.
Yeah.
And then the bike just flips over. She spikes and scorpions into the pavement.
Can we legally do that stuff in Montana?
Like scorpion into the pavement?
That's optional. I mean, what if you're like pulling up to a red light and you got a sheriff and a PD in between you? It's a 3-lane road, which I don't think exists in Montana. Let's say you pull up to it.
Oh, I get where this is going. No.
And you do that. Are you going to get pulled over? Or are you why?
Yes. It's like exhibition driving, or there's some traffic.
You guys suck.
Traffic law.
I mean, it's one thing.
What
to
about
like,
my First Amendment right?
Yeah, it's one thing to take their own risks to do that yourself out there or whatever.
Yeah.
But now you're doing it in Orlando, Florida, with all the tourists with international driver's license and rental cars that don't know what they're doing or where they're going. Good luck.
Yeah.
It's rarely the guy on the bike that is causing the problem themselves. It's
No,
always
the bike
somebody else.
ghost rides into somebody else,
Yeah.
and then you got an issue.
Yeah.
Somebody walking their kid to whatever Disney contraption you guys
Sure.
have there,
Yeah.
World
All sorts of
Park,
weird stuff.
whatever it is. Why don't you guys introduce yourself? That's the easiest start. Nelson, go ahead because you can be short
Yes.
because people know who
Nelson
you are.
Grant, local Flathead guy.
Wanted to be a firefighter his whole life, couldn't actually pass the
Didn't make
screening,
selection, so I ended up at the sheriff's office.
which I mean is a tale as old as time.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
how many
it took
times
me
have we
about
heard it?
10 years to figure out that those guys are playing Xbox and working out all day. No, a bunch of my good buddies are firefighters, and yeah, they have a good career.
You forgot the honorary mayor of Flathead Valley, as I found out here that he knows everybody.
Yeah,
Everybody.
What would you say for like a far recognition? Top 3 things to know it's a firefighter.
Mustache, number
Handlebar
one.
mustache,
Yep.
of course.
Yep, number one.
Yep.
Firehouse shirt. Like they're gonna
Oh,
they're
yep.
gonna wear their shirt.
Yep.
Yep, they're always in bling. Fire. It's probably not their department, but somebody else's department. They've traded, just like the challenge coins we were talking about. Number 3,
I got number 3.
red trucks.
Ridiculously lifted truck. 73% chance it's red. I mean, if you drive by the firehouse, it's like, hey guys, let's have some originality here.
They have other colors.
Yeah.
Well, I can't talk too much shit. It's Marines have an even higher
I was
likelihood of
gonna
buying
say,
a
I
red
think I've
vehicle.
heard you say Marine bases are the same way.
That's not a joke.
No kidding.
If they flew that Russian or Chinese balloon over like Camp Pendleton, they would be shocked at the number of red vehicles there. And I'm not judging it. But yeah, if you want to see a good collection of fucking lifted trucks that I'm not sure are ever actually taken off-road, your local fire department is a good place to
They
start.
probably even buy that spray-on mud to make it look like they've been mud bogging, but they don't want to actually wear and tear on their
Yeah.
vehicle.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the top 3 for people.
Yeah.
And we know who Nelson is.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm Paul Evancoe, police officer in Orlando for Orlando Police Department.
For how long?
15 years.
How'd you get into the policing occupation?
It wasn't I never wanted to be a cop growing up. It was really kind of wanted to go in the military my whole life, with my dad being a team guy, and
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Pull that mic in front of your face, too. Angle that
a little
thing.
bit better.
Yeah.
Right there.
Just treat it like
Just
it's a
an inch.
firefighter. Just
Perfect.
get it right into your lips.
Harness my inner firefighter guy.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, no.
amazing how you adapted to that cue, though. It's almost, you're just like, what?
Quickly. No,
You
so
gotta know
I
your
kinda-
audience. You know, you got to
You're right.
connect with the people that you're trying to
Sure,
coach.
sure. Especially hanging around this guy.
Yeah. That's right. I forgot your dad was a team guy. So
Yeah.
you grew up. Did he do his full 20?
Yeah, he did 26. So he enlisted
Yep.
at 17, and then after Vietnam, got his degree, and then went back in as an officer.
All right. So you were growing up around picnics and just
East Coast reunions,
yeah.
all of it, Little Creek. You know, I was born in Subic Bay, Philippines.
Okay.
Moved back to Virginia Beach, and then between Maryland and Pennsylvania, that whole area until I was done with college. So
Did you ever think about being a team guy?
I did. I mean, that's what I idolized growing up as a kid, you know, especially, I mean, come on, you're at the East Coast reunion and watching these guys jump into the middle of the picnic area eating freaking oysters and bay crabs. I mean, you can't go wrong. Like it was,
I've never been to one.
never been the one.
Nope. It's not my thing. I mean, do you guys go to cop reunions?
No.
No.
But as a kid, as a family member, it was awesome.
Actually,
I loved
though,
it.
are there cop reunions?
Sometimes.
Like
There's-
you guys probably do like every Friday, right?
No, I would say probably the Washington, D.C. Memorial during Police Week is probably like the largest congregation of like cop reunion, if you want to call that. But it's, you know, there for, you know, honoring the fallen. But
That's probably like an all 50 state participant, though.
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
You'll get international participation in that,
Okay.
too. But,
It's a big deal. I've actually wanted to go to that. I just haven't budgeted
I mean,
the
I
time.
grew up in that area and I never went.
Have you gone since you became a police
No,
officer?
I haven't.
Those ones I actually feel like would be super tough. It's not like you're there high-fiving and talking about great things that happened. It's very solemn.
It is. And I mean, the guys talk about how powerful it is, especially when you're there representing your agency, adding a name from your department to the wall.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty big deal. So
We went to New York after the jumping expedition and went to the 9/11 memorial. And I had been out to the, what would they be called? I guess infinity pools, which those in and of themselves are super fucking powerful with all the names wrapped around. Have you guys been?
I did right after the towers went down.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
2000, might have been 3.
So so the memorial that's there now, obviously.
Right, it wasn't there. It was still rubble.
I was there in November of 2001, and it was still on fire.
Yeah. So now it looks slightly different than both of your previous experiences. But it's cool. They, to my understanding, and open to be corrected on this, but the two infinity pools have the footprint of where the towers were, so you can see, and they're ringed with the names. And then there's also the museum, though. And I had been to the viewing area, the infinity pools, multiple times before. I've actually stopped by every time I've been to New York. Going into that museum, though, holy shit. We did that. I think we did some media first, and then we went and did that. That was about all I was.
Yeah.
I was done for the day after that.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
a lot
open to
good.
the public? Like
Yeah.
Like you don't have to schedule a time or anything like that?
Maybe during
like normally?
peak times, you'd have to buy a ticket, but we walked straight in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sure
a lot.
during September it's packed.
I'm sure it is, but like the number of artifacts that they have and the stories behind them and the pictures, like the last pictures of people. They have pictures of, there's one room that has the face of every person who died there.
Oh, man.
It's fucking rough, man.
heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were like, yay, we just did all this. Then we went there and everybody's like, so, does anybody want to just go get like blackout drunk and not talk about this anymore?
Well, you guys talk about like how impactful that event was for getting people into the military. I mean, it was the same for first responders too, for cops and firefighters. It was equally as impactful for them wanting to get into that line of service. So,
yeah, that was a heavy one. So, and I don't know how the hell we got on that. So, again, you grew up in and around the teams, but you chose law enforcement instead.
yeah, well, while I was in college, I was studying biology. I was working for Department of Energy. I was a sworn fed doing my internship with DOE and their National Nuclear Response Administration. And I had my TS all through college. I was doing the nuke side of stuff. That was actually my first time coming to Montana.
Almost nobody knows about what you're talking about right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and again, I don't break it down to whatever level you want to.
Sure.
I know there's some sensitivities around it. Nelson, next time drink that directly in front of the mic so people can hear that even more. It's like it's your fucking first time doing this.
This is my first time, bud.
You disgust me. Feel free to turn his mic off at any time that you want to, Michael.
I already did.
Yeah,
I should
good.
have a button
Yeah.
that when I need to speak, I'll just.
A little push
No,
to talk.
you
Yeah.
don't even get a button. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because I have some friends that work in that sector as well.
It's so there's a particular office within the Department of Energy that has worldwide nuclear response capability for whether it be a radiological disaster, a nuclear weapon, or something like that, a terrorist attack, or even just a lost nuclear weapon, something like that. They have a full team, an entire office dedicated to worldwide response for this. And
How often are nuclear weapons lost?
now, I have no idea. Probably never.
I mean, I would put a air tag on it
Yeah,
or something like that. You know, like we should probably keep track of these things.
But they are scattered all over the ocean floor, though.
Okay.
All over the ocean floor, from post World War II and all that.
I don't think that's good.
No,
I mean, I think it's good that the technology doesn't exist for most countries to be able to go get them or even locate them in general, but I don't know. I don't think my very first visual is like a turtle swimming around stuck in a nuclear weapon, even though it's probably too deep for them.
Well, the good thing is those ships or those subs that were carrying them back then, we didn't have GPS location, so it's really challenging to try and figure out exactly where that boat went down or that sub went down. But yeah, they're out there. They're out there. But
Awesome. Thank you for adding something else I can think about in the middle of the night, staring at the fucking ceiling
Yeah,
when I can't sleep.
Yeah, and it was my dad he was the assistant director for the office out there. So I got hired. I literally graduated high school like on a Wednesday, and I started working there that next Monday, right away through the summer. Went through the process and got my top secret clearance by the end of the year. And
So you're like 19 with the TS clearance?
I was 18 with a TS.
That is wild.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I'd never looked into the stats, but I was told I was one of the youngest ones to have a TS with Q rating for, nuclear. I mean, technically nuclear borehead blueprints. If I had a need to look at them since the Manhattan Project. So
Wow.
it was really cool. It was,
it's unique for sure.
Yeah, and it was good job experience. I mean, I was thrown right into it. I didn't like the suit and tie in downtown DC and L'Enfant Plaza every day taking the metro, but
who would though?
Yeah, that was actually my big motivator to want to not have like a federal desk job. It was great experience, and I was studying like the biological side of things in school, and I was getting my experience on the nuclear side of things with the job. So I'm like, all right, I'm kind of building my resume here. I'll go into either the agency or I'll go into Secret Service or something. I was looking more that route. And then by the time I was finishing college, I was 23, 24. A little too young to go for the FLETC, for the Federal Law Enforcement Academy. So I was like, all right, let me go be a street cop for a couple of years, just get my feet wet.
You were too young for FLETC?
No, I mean, they prefer.
You were on the early end of their
Yes,
threshold.
they prefer like 26, 27 years old with some experience. Now, I probably would have been fine because of my experience with DOE. But, I was green. Like, I didn't, outside of working in those offices and doing that kind of stuff, I grew up in rural suburbia Maryland. Like, I didn't have any adversity in my life growing up as a kid. So I wanted to get out and learn and just kind of see what else was out there. And not to mention, this was the first time being a Navy brat. This is the first time I had a choice to choose where I wanted to live. So
it's a true story.
I'm getting out of Maryland. Like, I'm either going to Southern California because my best friend, his dad was in the teams of my dad. So he was living in Coronado Sands. So I was like, I can go to Coronado, hang out with him, or I can go to Florida. I was choosing based on weather and fishing was my two choices. So I chose Florida based on cost of living. Yeah, cost of living was extremely lower in Florida than it was in Southern Cali. So
yeah, Southern California there's few places that are actually more expensive to live than that, especially Coronado. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you wanted to pick, I think it's one of the top 3 most expensive zip codes in Cali itself. I remember the first time I saw a sub 1,000 foot house for sale for over $1 million. I'm like, really? We're going to do $1,000 a square foot? Like, this is what we're doing here?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're nice.
Cool. I guess I know what's possible now.
Dude, I went through my first earthquake out there in Coronado too.
Yeah. It probably wasn't a very big one.
No, it was somewhere else. It was like the aftershock, but I'm not used to the ground moving under me, and I was like, what in the world? And we went running out of the house.
Did you get through it okay?
Oh, yeah. That's good. I've got some trauma.
I'm sure you did. You should work through it, or just shove it down deep until it comes out on its own. Right. So you go to Orlando and straight into law enforcement?
Yeah. I applied, got hired with them.
How many sworn in that department on average? I'm sure it fluctuates a little bit.
Yeah, we are slotted for 860 officers right now.
I don't feel like that's enough.
It's not. We're a little over 800 right now, but
what's the population of Orlando?
A lot.
178 billion.
A lot. I mean, and like we're just talking city limits of Orlando. Like, really, if you need to look at like the Orlando metro area as a whole, because like Disney isn't in the city. Universal Studios is, but Disney's in the county of Orlando. So you got to think all the tourists population that comes in. I mean, we are seeing tens and millions of people on a regular basis coming in. That adds to all of our call volume.
So who else? I'm assuming you have a sheriff department.
We
as
do.
Well.
Yep. Orange County Sheriff's Office.
Any idea what their sworn numbers are?
They're like 1,200.
Bigger than the PD?
Yeah. Yeah, because they have a larger square footage, the cover square miles.
Yeah, same in Montana.
Yeah.
Yeah. What the fuck did you say the other day, Nelson? We're like, our job starts where the sidewalk ends.
I don't think I said that.
It was something along those lines because you were.
But I support it.
It may have. I don't know if we were talking about this on air or off air, but you were. I'm not even going to beat around the bush. You were mocking a radio call. We can be broad about the radio call. Somebody, let's say, who's more inside of the city districts, trying to describe their route of travel and pursuit out of the city.
We talked about this, I think, last time, but unknown county.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about that the other day.
I'm like, pretty sure it's still Flathead, but like,
right.
Cool. I think what he means is unknown street.
Yes. It's by a red barn.
I swear you said your job, like, what is it? Was either where the curbs end or where the sidewalk ends or some shit like that?
I don't think I said that because this is the first I've heard that, but
it's accurate though, right?
It is. It's funny when you're chasing somebody and they turn on a dirt road and you got K cars behind you and they stop.
What's a K car?
Kalispell PD.
Oh, okay.
Our cars are too clean. No, that's never happened, but I can envision it. They look good. They're always, top shape in our trucks.
So you just got a new truck. Yep. I won't make you tell the story of how you almost destroyed the center console on your first day. What color is your new truck?
It's like a light gray or a dark blue.
Okay, yeah. I saw a sheriff truck. I was used to them all being white.
Right.
And I saw one that was gray come by. So
Yep.
it's
They're
tough.
phasing out the
I got
the
to
old
train
white
my
ones.
eye to
Right.
who I can speed around.
It looks
now.
good. It's a nice truck.
Yeah,
for sure.
They do look sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I like it.
Do you recommend securing your shotgun in the
Yes.
holder
Yes, I do.
itself?
Yeah.
What would potentially happen, Nelson, if
So-
you didn't do that?
Okay, very first night, I get my new truck, and it takes a long time to switch all your gear out of your old stuff. And depending on what they want to do with the old truck, I think they were just taking it to auction, my old white one. So I get all my gear, and it took probably 5-6 hours to secure everything, get everything in its place. But so I got my M4 in the little clamshell lock. My shotgun did not fit in the mount that they provided right out of the shop, So I needed Allen keys to adjust it. So I set it in the rack to go home, get my Allen set to really finalize setting up my car. And also, this truck is slick, dude. It has the 8-inch CarPlay screen, wireless. It's pretty.
He's already fucking the story up. It's a 12-inch.
Is it 12? I don't know what it is. It's huge. So
What do you tell your wife you're packing?
you go low, dude, so that they're impressed.
I was going to say, I feel like, it's a 12-inch screen.
Yeah.
Is
So
it-
anyway,
does it
whatever
take up
it
the whole
is.
center console?
Yeah.
I said
Yeah,
because I
it
have one of the
does.
new F-150. Yeah, it's 12.
Yeah. And it is slick, and it just was the package, that Interceptor package. But some of my buddies got the car right before, like the last fleet of vehicles just a few months ago, and they have a teeny little, like, this is legit like 1.5 inch, like digital. It just says like,
It just shows the radio station.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff, yeah.
so they're all like, "What, dude? How'd you get this thing?" And admin, they just selected. They didn't add that enhancement. It just was there. And I have wireless, my Ford app. I can start my truck anywhere. So like we were coming back from a rescue the other day, and the pilot's like, "Did you really leave your car running?"
Well, hold on. I'm going to interrupt you here.
Yeah.
Just so you know, any Ford owner can have that, so let's not pretend like you're special.
Yeah, but my personal truck doesn't have that, so I'm pretty stoked.
I don't want to hear you talking about government taxpayer dollars being used as your personal truck. I will fucking turn you in.
So anyway, got the sweet radio, and
Tell the story right. So this
Yep.
government vehicle that I've been using as my personal truck now.
I just got a sticker that blacks out the sheriff. No, so I'm running up to the house to grab some Allen keys to adjust my rack. It's like 6 hours into my shift, and one of my partners calls out like I need backup right now. He stopped this gangbanger, and he's outnumbered, and he's like, I'm getting the indicators. So he calls a 903. I think he called a 903. I can't. He just needs help. So I'm like, oh shit. Start hammering lights and siren, and I'm like figuring out where everything's operating out of. And as I go through Columbia Heights, a deer jumps out in front of me. And all my years of my last truck, I never even came close to smashing a deer.
It's because you never drove around with your lights and sirens on.
Yeah, true. So this thing steps out first night, first call. I jam on my brakes, and this shotgun comes flying out of the rack, straight muzzle into my brand new screen of my dash. And I'm like, I missed the deer, but I almost smash this screen. And I guarantee my admin would not have supported fixing this thing.
There's a gnarly scratch on that thing, too.
Oh, there is a scratch, but it's tough.
What would they have done if you'd hit the deer? That's not an issue?
Deer, it's like cost of doing business.
was gonna say,
It just
it's gotta-
depends on what the scenario is. But
Okay.
yeah, that happens all the time. Deer strikes. But
It's
I
better
didn't want
to-
it to happen the very first night I had this thing.
It's better to get the first scratch or ding in a new vehicle. Just get it done.
Oh, I got it done.
Yeah.
And I thought that I was going to have a muzzle hole in the front of this. But no, luckily, I was like, oh my God, what is... I almost smashed a deer, and I forgot this shotgun wasn't secured. So then I set it next to me, and went like really slow the rest of the way.
I wish it had gone off when the muzzle contacted your screen.
Yeah.
Not that that's how shotguns
That would
work.
have been awesome.
Right.
But I'd have been so stoked.
The airbags go off. So, hey,
I hadn't
Sergeant.
thought about that, but I like that too.
Anyway, that was the very first night, but since then she's been running good.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's been sitting in your driveway for 3 weeks. So.
Yeah, true story.
You guys are familiar with like the online masterclass video series?
I'll teach one.
I was going to say, you
Yeah.
could actually do one on how to have an inordinate amount of time off.
Yeah.
I feel like you play like shift roulette. Like you sit down at the beginning of the month. I'll give you 3 A's for 4 B's, and then just.
I'm definitely wearing my welcome out there.
Yeah.
So
Well, you're going in the night. I'm gonna ride with them and
I'm working tonight.
see what the valley's like.
Yeah.
On a Monday, you're gonna be bored out of your fucking.
We're gonna
mind.
stop by the hospital and visit the down trooper.
Sweet.
So, Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know where we got from there.
We were talking about the size of Orlando. The
yeah.
sheriff's department is bigger than the PD.
Yeah. Same. So
Yeah,
county's
sure.
the same way. We got double the department size, of deputies versus KPD guys.
I would say our population is higher than the county, but
Yeah.
square mileage, they got a much.
And I say that
much
it might
greater
not
area.
be double now. Like I think they used to run around 30 guys, and now I think it's up to 40
KPD?
Yeah.
Total?
total. And dude, I'm totally stepping out. This was just like when I got hired. I remember asking, "Hey, what's the size of KPD?" It was in that 30s, and now I think they're in the 40s. But
Just on one shift rotation alone with us, we have well over 100 officers on duty at a time.
I mean, that seems like a big number, but not really.
And so Southeast Orlando is expanding dramatically, and we're at the point now where, on shift we had 12 officers assigned to that sector, and it has grown so big, and the city keeps annexing so much of the county and adding to it, and then it was all swamp. It's just getting bulldozed and built up, cookie cutter neighborhoods everywhere. They're packing as many people as they can that are coming down from New York and California and all these other states, and it's at the point now. I mean, 12 guys can't handle that area. Like it's going to have to become like its own whole division.
Maybe even get its own department.
They talked about that for the airport, because they just expanded a whole new international terminal at the airport, because that airport is slammed. I don't know if you ever flown in Orlando.
I have.
It's pretty user friendly, but it's just packed at all times. Well, they just added a whole international terminal with a high-speed train station that's going to run directly from Orlando to Miami, which is going to be nothing but chaos.
I mean, 100 people sounds like a lot, but I figure on any given Friday night, I bet you 50 to 75 of those are constantly busy doing. It's not like you have people just cruising around doing nothing. I feel
Well,
like
that's 100 on patrol that are working their normal shift. It is way, way more than that for all the overtime shifts. Like we have a really popular downtown area in the heart of the city of Orlando, and every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday they close the streets down, and it's just nothing but clubs and bars and restaurants, and it's just absolutely packed. And we'll have another 30, 40, 80 guys working that whole area, just that 4 city block area. So we got a lot on duty, especially on the weekends. But
sounds like Main Street Kalispell, just hopping, just several people out there.
We hit Main Street Whitefish last night. No, yeah, it was
Dead.
It was good times. Sunday night.
Sundays, there's not a lot going on here.
Yeah.
There is not a lot going on. Last Sunday, though, I'm pretty sure I saw your buddy again on the corner of the park. He had a new sign.
Oh, nice.
I try to take a picture and send it to you every time. He still is not getting the memo. He flips it. It's like 4 paragraphs. He flips it before I can read it. There was somebody out there who was clearly trying to change his mind about something. It wasn't going their way.
Is this the guy selling
Nuclear missiles.
Nuclear missiles, yeah.
ICBMs. Mike was just in town, too. He didn't even get the chance to put down a down payment on it.
You would have not recognized him.
God. No, he wouldn't. That guy's an interesting man. I hope he never comes into the coffee shop, because I'm going to have to ask him to leave pretty rapidly.
Have you had to eject anyone yet?
No, the closest we've had is that full send you guys saw of the dude.
God, that was so epic. Oh my God.
So I didn't see it. I got the picture and immediately rushed in and helped clean up the mess, but you're going to have to describe what you guys saw.
I was standing from me to you when it happened, because we're standing there waiting for our drink order.
I went back through the security camera footage to try to find it, and it cuts that glass window is just outside of the frame. I was because I looked at the text you sent. I'm like, I bet it happened near that. So I went back.
Yep.
It's like, fuck, I can't see it.
Oh man, yeah, we're standing there. I ordered 2 pour-overs for us in there, and standing there about a few minutes waiting for it. And
It takes about 7 minutes for a pour over people if you want it done right.
yeah, and
They're delicious.
They were well done. We did
Yeah.
the thin blue line.
It's my
pour-over. It was
favorite
excellent.
way.
Yeah.
What, you guys didn't go with the fireman's roast? I mean, fuck, dude.
Well, he ordered. I came up. I was like, hey, where's the firefighter coffee?
Yeah.
Right.
But no, it sounded like an explosion. I'm sitting there talking to him, and kabam! And we turned to our left. This dude, to his credit, he wasn't on his phone or anything. He just got his drinks, head down.
I think he was looking at his drink order, but he had a bag of merch, shirts
from
and hats and
Craft.
stuff too.
And so,
First off, our window washers are on point, obviously.
yeah, he definitely didn't see there was a window there. The doors are to the right, and they're 2 huge doors.
Yeah.
You can't miss them.
You can't miss it.
Which I'm
side-
assuming he came through on either the east or west side. So he was aware that they're there.
Oh, I felt
That's
bad,
correct.
but it left one of these all over, all
So
over
he
the window.
he was
Iced coffee.
at a normal clip, full send into the glass.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
My interest is in what happened after he made contact. How'd it go?
He actually he handled it pretty well.
was a
Like
good dude.
he started chuckling. Like he had two buddies that were standing right there and immediately started laughing at him like right
Good.
away, which
Those are
kind
good friends.
of broke the ice, a little bit. And he was and first words out of his mouth, he's just looking down at himself because he's covered in coffee. Like it's in his bag,
flannel.
it's his flannel, his jeans, it's all over his boots, it's on his face. I mean, it exploded when he hit it, and he just looks down and he goes, "God, that's embarrassing."
Yeah, and I think the ladies at the baristas there, they like, what was that order?
Yeah.
And they just started working on
Yeah.
on his
Immediately.
coffee.
I mean, you're definitely going to get a free one, especially if you entertain the audience like that. I would go to a coffee shop if I knew somebody was going to send it to a glass window.
Dude, and you saw how, obviously how busy it was in there.
Yeah.
It went dead silent the second he smashed it in glass.
And everybody, like, he handled it like a champ.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
did. He handled it like a champ. There's a couple ways you can go with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Michael's over there dying laughing. Don't worry, I have pictures of the aftermath.
I snapped a photo not discreetly. I'm just like, okay, buddy,
Right away.
smile.
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing discreet about what happened, so just, put it up there.
It was bad luck on that guy's part that it was you and I that was standing right there when it
Yeah, I
happened.
texted
so-
Andy in Denver
I know,
immediately.
I put it up on the BRCC
Yeah, I saw
story,
that.
and I was like, hey, dude, come back. We'll get you another one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it was
Good
great.
on him.
Yeah, it was great.
Props to, I don't know who cleans our windows. Otherwise, I'd put a shout out because that shit was obviously crystal clear.
Yeah,
Sure
today
was.
when we went in, I was like, oh, yeah, there's the crime scene right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Hotel.
I wonder if I could find a sticker that's like just a slight imprint of like somebody's face with a coffee that we could put up there just in memoriam for that guy.
Yeah, we call that gross lack of situational awareness.
You've had some of that this week.
Yeah, I have
Really?
absolutely. Oh man, I am out of my element in the snow. I am absolutely out of my element.
Would you run into a tree that had been there for centuries? Or?
No, I didn't run in any trees. I fell off the snowmobile a whole lot yesterday.
I heard that's common though for
yeah,
people
yeah,
starting
it
to
is.
ride. Yeah,
Yeah.
What-
they
it-
basically get tipped a little bit too
we
far.
I was fine on the trail, but when we got off the trail and we got down in some of the soft stuff,
Yeah.
I mean, I was
And the snow is
fish out of
great.
water.
It was like 18 inches a foot of just awesome pow. You had to be on the throttle because it would just.
Based off his description of the size of his center console, I'm thinking it's like 2 or 3 feet of snow now.
It was deep. There was a couple spots, and maybe just because we were near the trees, there was a couple spots where I stepped in, and I'm, well over my knees in snow, and you're trying to walk around the snowmobile to get on the other side to try and counter the weight, and
Yeah.
it was tough. But I'm sitting here watching Nelson do it, and his other buddy James that was out there with us, and I can't imitate. I'll attempt, and then I'm just flopping all over the place, man. It's ridiculous.
It makes you wonder how he has enough time to master a snowmobile
Right.
when he's supposed to be working.
Sure.
Hey, it's part of my job.
No, it's
Somebody's
not.
got to go rescue
It's not
these
part
guys.
of your job at
That
all.
is 100% part of
You
my job.
ride in a helicopter, right?
And snowmobile.
No.
I go on a bunch of snowmobile missions.
No, you don't.
It's just
Which-
like 8 days a week at jiu-jitsu.
Which was amazing, by the way. The day after I came in, I got to jump in the helicopter with him.
And then you guys got surged to was it out near Libby?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eureka. It's in
Okay.
county, but yeah, north of there. Yeah, we jumped in for just a training op. We were going to go. James was flying. Gabe was there. We took Paul over the mountains into Hungry Horse. And I was on the intercom, like the ICS. So I'm on my own channel because I'm going to exit the helicopter. These guys are all listening to the dispatch radio as well. And they're all like getting super serious. And I'm like, well, we're going to touch down, kick him out, and then we're going to jockey up and come in and do some hoists. And it's a beautiful day, bluebird day. It was pretty warm. And I could tell these guys were all like getting super serious. And they're like talking over the intercom system or the ICS system about an officer down, shots fired.
Shots fired, yeah.
And I'm like, was this earlier today? What are you guys talking about? They're like, oh, you can't hear it? So they immediately plugged me into the black box. And it's like all units head to Eureka, which is like an hour drive, typically 45 minutes. So we hooked around, we went, landed to fuel up because we just had enough fuel to do training in case because the suspect was on the loose. And we didn't really know what we had. So I grabbed my M4 out of the car. We fueled up and then we started launching. And before we got over there, just as we were getting on scene, they had suspect in custody.
Would they let you shoot out of that helicopter?
No, probably not. I got it as we should have something.
Why can't you shoot out of it?
Well, we've never trained. That's not like the function of the helicopter.
That's what I was there
When
for,
has that
dude.
ever stopped you?
Yeah. This guy's shot out of helicopters plenty of times.
When has it ever stopped you that you haven't trained for?
I think that
you don't
if
train
it
for
was-
like a hand-to-hand confrontation on the street, and you still go out there.
Yeah, true. I was thinking if we do set down somewhere and I have to deal with a suspect, then I should have my gun.
Where would you have shot the car? Paul, don't answer.
Shot the car? I probably wouldn't have shot the car.
If you got the opportunity to do so, and you were trying to stop the vehicle.
I don't know. I would probably, if I have deadly force to take the guy out, I'd probably aim through the windshield. I have no idea.
You really don't, do you?
No. My thoughts were, I'm going to have my gun. If we sit down and we need to deal with this, I'm going to be armed. So that's why I grabbed it. Not for shooting out of the helicopter.
How many magazines did you bring with you?
3 plus 1 in the one in the gun.
Okay.
So 4.
That's good. I was expecting you to say just the gun.
No, I brought my plate.
That was the standard that I set for He's like, yeah, I just grabbed my pistol mags. I left the gun in the car, but like I had some mags.
Bro, come on.
I'll throw them at the car.
Come on, dude.
That's interesting. Yeah, you guys probably have never trained for shooting out of a vehicle like that.
Yeah,
But vehicle interdiction
helicopter,
is likely.
yeah.
Well, you guys don't have a helicopter, so it
Yeah.
makes sense to not do that.
Well, we don't use it in the SWAT application. We use it for transporting troops.
Yeah.
You know, but not for deploying from the helicopter. But anyway, so it's a super sad scenario. Trooper's in pretty rough shape. We've got 24-hour coverage on him right now, like just support. But a deputy and a trooper contact like this is just from what I hear from my boys. So I haven't heard firsthand what happened, but sounds like they were trying to make a stop on a guy that had a large quantity of drugs, fentanyl, and took off on a chase, occupied with 2 people. And at some point, the vehicle spins around and then engage the car as it runs the trooper over. I don't know any more of the details how that transpired, but
Substantial injuries from the trooper, which is rough.
Yep. And his wife is a trooper as well.
Yeah, it's rough, man.
Yep. So, but anyway, super sad. So we, after that whole scenario, we made sure that they didn't need our assistance anymore. We continued on with our training, and he got to get hoisted several times and saw how we operate out of the bird
It was pretty gnarly dropping me off. Like, what do you call that spot?
with a battleship.
The
It's just
battleship?
like this 200-foot like skinny rock feature that
It's like in the middle of the valley.
yeah, it's pretty impressive.
And they just dropped me off in this little island, and then they
Took
take
off.
off, come full circle, come back, and then Nelson gears up and clips into the hoist and comes dropping down, and then goes through the procedures as if I'm, a stuck or injured victim, whatever, and then goes through his process of getting me in the harness and lifting me up, and it was pretty sweet. We did it a few times.
When are we
going
going to conduct jump training operations out of that?
You know, I'm the wrong guy to ask for that, but I bet you know
Well, you're the
guy.
only fucking guy I know over there. So
Yeah, you know another guy, too.
I know another guy, but I don't know if it's appropriate to ask that guy.
Yeah, we can talk about it. I'm open.
Yeah.
If you guys want to do some hoist training in the actual backcountry, let me get out of the bird at like 3,000 feet into a super remote area. Give me like 10 minutes to pack my shit up, and then come get me.
That sounds like
And
a
we
good-
can repeat
good
it until
time.
you're out of gas.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm 100% down for that.
All right, I'll be there Thursday.
Everybody wins.
In the summer. Thursday in the summer. It's really chilly.
Oh, you don't like it now?
I like it just fine.
Yeah.
As far as falling through the air at 120 miles an hour, I prefer it to be a little bit warmer
It's warmer in Antarctica.
air. Antarctica was not bad.
No?
I was actually sweating underneath all the stuff.
Really?
Yeah. Because I was wearing far too much.
Yeah.
I had an entire like Ogio 9800 specifically for that continent, and then as soon as we got to Miami, I did the rest of it carry on because I just like fuck, get away from me with that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
but-
got real easy, real fast as far as luggage.
Did you guys jump in Miami, or was it Tampa when you came back?
Oh god damn it! If you hadn't have asked me, it was Clewiston.
Clewiston. Oh, that's
So,
right.
yeah.
Okeechobee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was out of all the jumps we did, by far the least visually appealing.
Because it's all flat, other
It
than
was
the big
flat.
lake. Like that's
there
all.
was a little bit of water,
And that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it's all sawgrass and sugarcane farms down there, and nothing at all.
Nothing exciting to speak of.
No.
Yeah, really. I mean, it sucks that the U.S. was the low light of.
Well, compared to the other continents, yeah. I
It
mean,
was tough. Yeah, they were pretty awesome. But Antarctica was very cold. But most of the time, I was walking around in like a slightly insulated pair of pants and a light top because the sun was out for most of the day, and you could just sit outside in the sun. It really wasn't that bad. It was chilly at altitude, of course, but I had multiple layers on and like electronically warm gloves. It wasn't bad.
I said when I got here too, just you know, how impressive the view is in the valley, looking at, you know, the mountains and everything. And I'm like, I got nothing good to look at in Florida. Like my neighborhood is like 3 feet above sea level. Like it is so flat. The entire, you know, lower portion of the whole state, pretty much 3/4 of the state.
You can live anywhere you want.
No, I know. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining.
But you just were, though.
I love Florida. I love
That's not
Florida.
what you just said.
But the view could be better, you know?
Yeah. But I mean, you can come visit.
Yeah, well, no, visit for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe if I can convince the wife after I retire to want to move to the mountains, but
Well, how long do you have to do to retire? Is it based off your age or time in service?
time and service, 20 years.
Okay, so you're getting there.
Less than 5 if I wanted to.
Yeah.
But
How did it go? I'm assuming that Orlando has their own academy, or Florida has a statewide academy, and then you start off as a beat cop in Orlando.
yeah. Midnight patrol.
The new
doing
guy
the thing.
shift.
New guy shift, right?
Do you guys rotate through, or do you bid? Because I have watched this dude just be annihilated by their constantly rotating schedule, and it's not even like the jury's out as to whether or not that is good or bad for human beings. It's fucking terrible.
We don't
It ages
rotate.
you in like dog years.
We don't rotate. So unless you put in a transfer somewhere,
Yeah.
or you get moved for personnel reasons, like if you want to work midnight shift, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., we work 12s. If you want to work midnight shift for 20 years in that one side of town, you can work midnight shift your entire career.
I don't even know if that's necessarily good for you, but the lack of rotation, I think, has got to help at least.
Well, it does, because if you know what your schedule is going to be, what days you're going to have off 5 years from now.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so consistent in that aspect that is the really easy part of patrol, because, we'll work 2 days and we're off 2 days. Every other weekend's a 3-day weekend off. If you wanted to take a week off for vacation, you just take that Wednesday, Thursday on your short week, and now you got 7 days off, and you're only burning 2 days of vacation. So
Yeah, and just go online. Nelson has a master class on that. He could teach you the
I'll
ways.
teach it.
Yeah.
He would do that and somehow get paid for it and have more time off at the end of it.
yeah, yes.
Yes, true.
Did you get any word yet? Are you guys going to be able to bid, or is it
I
going to
haven't
stand
heard yet. It sounds like it's being entertained, so
Which would be good for you because your
Yeah.
seniority is on the higher end.
Oh yeah, they asked everybody like their top 2 shifts of choice, and they asked me, "What's your top shift of choice?" Because I'll get the top shift
Days.
if whatever I want. I think I'd do swings so I can hit jits before work.
Oh,
I really
that's
like
right.
swings.
What are the hours for swing?
3P to 2A.
Oh, yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. You can get up at a normal time on your days off. You can grunt out the last few hours if you're having a tired night. And usually the op tempo is a lot higher. You're going call to call to call. And before work, you can get your workout in. Like days, man, it's really tough to get to the gym 2 hours after you get off shift. You've been head on a swivel all day from all the traffic, all the tedious calls. Somebody broke into my car last night. I'm just finding it. And at swing shift, they're like, hey, I think somebody's in my car. So you have a lot more opportunity to contact criminals. But although some crazy stuff happens during the day shift too.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that about Orlando. You could kind of plan out.
Yeah, and obviously it's squad dependent. Not everybody works the same hours. We have overlapping. So, whether it's 5 p.m. or 5:15 or 5:30 or 6 p.m., we have different squads start at different times. So there's always overlap. And it's not the same shift change at the same time.
How long did you stay on patrol before you went to, was it SWAT or that TAC unit?
So our SWAT team's collateral duty. We're not full time.
That's what I was going to ask because
Yeah.
I knew you were on SWAT. How big of a department does it need to be before you have that as a full-time job? Like NYPD, I'm assuming their SWAT is full-time?
That's full.
Probably LAPD as well, right?
Yep. There's full-time teams in Florida. We have like Jacksonville, JSO, they have a full-time team. Miami-Dade has a full-time team. And Orange County, the sheriff's office, the county we're in, they have a part of their team is full-time. They have a full-time contingent. And the other half is on-call, collateral. But we certainly have the op tempo to go full-time. We're a super busy team.
I wonder why they don't.
Honestly, it's money or it's manpower. You got to think right now we have a 45-man team, and we got guys all over the department in critical positions. And not that those positions can't be filled, but if you were to pull all of them right now and then try and replace those people and those experiences in one time, that would be a huge shock to the department. You'd be trying to get people caught up, and there'd be a lag trying to get those people, replacing them up to speed. So, I think it's something that'd have to be done kind of slowly, like kind of like the sheriff's office did. Like, hey, let's pull 10 guys, and whether we have an existing unit and we just replace that existing unit with just SWAT guys, and then they do their regular job, and then we have SWAT guys that are 10-8 all the time, and then slowly add to it as you get manpower. But we'd have to add bodies to the department as a whole to make that happen. We'd have to get through City Hall. We'd have to get permission to get more officers really to make that happen. But
What's how many call-outs average a year do you guys have on SWAT?
if we're counting like all of our search warrant operations and call outs like hostage rescue and things like that, we're over 100.
That's a
for
lot
a year.
plus training.
It's about once every 3 days.
I'm sure
that's
that,
average. And some days we'll have 3 operations in one day.
Yeah,
and then
just math. I mean, just
right.
just
it
to
is.
give people a perspective.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
the number of actual like after hours full team call outs has gone down just because we have so many officers on the team that are spread out around the department that are in patrol or specialized units like our fugitive unit. Those guys are they're like 90% of them are SWAT guys, and they're just crushing on a daily basis, kicking doors in every day. So they've done a really good job of kind of handling with the guys that are already on duty most of those situations. And we only had like maybe 7 or 8 in 2022 that required the full team activation. And because it's not just the team that gets called out, it's our support unit, it's the negotiation team. I mean, it is a massive number of people to get called out for just one event, for one hostage rescue thing, or one barricaded gunman, whatever the case may be. So
How many women on the team?
none at the moment.
You sexist piece of shit.
Yeah.
That's not going to work in 2023. Do you have any men that identify as women on the team?
Oh yeah, me.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, have you even asked them? Have you even thought to ask, you insensitive bastard?
it's on the application process.
That's racist. You can't do that.
We can't ask them.
I don't know the rules about any of this.
I don't either.
And I'm sure I'll get plenty of hate for joking about it, but I actually don't give a fuck.
No, we've had some try out, and we had one that tried out recently, and she was a SWAT officer up north prior to coming down to Orlando. But I don't think she's trying out this year. But yeah, we don't get a lot of interest from that. But it's open. We got the same. It's a objective selection process, so it's just a matter of getting the numbers. But I would say a lot of weight really goes into, and for anybody that applies for the team, but a lot of weight goes into their work ethic and their jobs and their primary job and their reputation in the department.
Yeah. Well, all that stuff matters deeply.
Yeah.
Were you guys involved in the search for that crazy fucker who killed his girlfriend in Utah? Or
No, that was West Coast, Florida. So that was Sarasota County.
Okay. Yeah, because they found him in a swamp, right?
Yeah. Yeah, self-inflicted gunshot wound.
With his little notebook, like, I feel bad about this.
Yeah. All ties lead back to Florida, man. This crazy stuff. It's always Florida, man. It's always Florida.
Yeah, Florida's got some messed up stuff there.
Or like
Yeah.
Louisiana. There's some sister cousins up there.
Yeah.
Family tree is missing a few branches. You know what I'm saying?
When that Pulse thing went down,
Yeah.
how long were you on the team at that point?
So that was 2016. I got
That
on
was in Orlando, right?
in Orlando. Yep. Downtown Orlando. So I got on the team in 2009. So I had only been on the department for a year when I got selected for SWAT.
Jesus, it's pretty rapid.
Yeah, it was. I had really strong mentors, luckily, but I was definitely too young to get selected for the team. I still didn't even know how to be a cop.
I was going to say, you probably, even if you could display the proper tactical proficiency of what you were getting taught, I'd say you're street smarts. And I don't mean it in a bad way. You just didn't have enough, like, as the tea bag in the water, you didn't have enough time to absorb.
Retrospectively, looking back, I think about that a lot. And I'm like, man, I wouldn't have picked me.
Yeah.
In my shoes now, as one of the senior guys on the team, I wouldn't have picked me back then. And, again, not that, I didn't make it through the selection process and I did a good job and, and all that, but I was just too young on the street. Like, I still had so much to learn about being a cop that is applicable to the job. When you're in the stack and doing, like, you need to mature a little bit more. We really prefer like 3 years, but
Fuck, I would even say that much is still low.
that's like, that's our preferred, like, minimum of 3. But, we get guys with, I didn't have any prior experience, you know what I mean? But we got guys that are coming in with, tons of combat experience that are trying out. And yeah, they've been on the team.
May not be a good thing for clarity.
Not necessarily, but they have
Some
life
of our
experiences.
tactics may deviate from what my understanding of what's called the law.
Right. Well, as far as life experiences, a lot of times that is going to outweigh their time as a police officer.
Yeah.
Just because of the stuff they've been through.
That'd be wild. You have an inordinate amount of tactical experience and almost no understanding of the law.
Yeah.
That's fucking dangerous.
Seriously, right?
It's like, what do you mean I can't do that? Well, you're going to share a cell with the person
Sure.
that you're after.
It's like I told the car to stop and I just started lighting it up. It's like,
Yeah.
this isn't a checkpoint, dude.
I identified it as it being a checkpoint.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, how far can we take this? Like, can I get it in court and be like, I identified him as this. I identified that I was standing at a checkpoint in Iraq. It doesn't work if I say that? Okay.
We've had dudes run cars off the road that passed them on the left because they were like flashing back to convoys.
You know what that means? First off, take a fucking wrap off.
Yeah.
Secondly, go get some help.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's not a normal and natural reaction.
No.
Like, you need to be able to realize, first off, the heyday of the kinetic operations was about a decade ago, so let's remember that. And B, just take it easy.
Yeah.
Fucking take it easy. I do enjoy the car-on-car shooting videos, though, that all seem to come from Florida as well.
Oh, my God.
Just straight pistols out the windows with absolutely no regard to where the round's going to hit. And because it never hits the car that they're shooting at, but they really like to run their mags just
Dude,
dry.
he told me about one.
We just had a gnarly one a few weeks ago.
What are you talking about?
Listen
Why do
to this.
people do this
Listen
shit?
to this.
And I don't know all the details because I didn't work the case. But
Just fill them in with shit you make up.
right, that's perfect. I'll get so much shit for that. We have a main highway that runs from Tampa to Daytona Beach. Interstate 4, I-4, runs right through the heart of Orlando. Extremely busy highway because, it's like the east-west connection. And I don't know, it was some road rage incident, and it was like in like the part of the highway that goes right through downtown proper. And these dudes started shooting at each other.
While driving, of course.
While driving.
Just hucking
obviously.
lead back and forth at each other.
Back and forth. And one of the cars had a female passenger in it. She gets lit up. Dead. The guy driving decides, well, I didn't get hit, so I can't have this dead chick in my car because of this gunfight I just had. So I'm just going to push her out of the car on the highway. So 911 calls started coming in of a body in the road that kept getting hit by cars. So they're like, oh man, this is a bad traffic scene. Some crazy crackhead must have run out playing Frogger on the road and lost. And no, it ended up she had gunshot wounds and there were shell casings all over the highway. And the highway, which again, a major thoroughfare, was shut down for like 24 hours. Like while they're trying to figure out what the hell
How
happened.
many miles did you say there were shell casings?
Oh, dude, it was like a mile of the road just all the way down. But a lot of those too get kicked up from tires and they get spread out. But I mean, they had to shut miles of the road down to figure it out. Like the crime scene was huge.
How in the hell do you escalate to the point where you think a rolling gunfight, probably pistols, is the way to go? What the actual fuck?
Well, I don't know if there was history between the two cars or if it was
Even
legit
if
just
there
road
was,
rage. But
why? I mean, sneak up behind somebody. Not that I'm giving anybody ideas, but
Right.
Jesus.
Yeah, ton of it. They don't care. That's their whole world. They're focused on that person right there that pissed them off, and they're going to handle it right there.
Did the two people who engaged in said gunfight get caught?
I don't know. I don't know yet. I would imagine
I've
that if
watched
they haven't
CSI.
already, they are investigating. that
I've
for
watched
sure.
CSI Miami. You guys have 45 minutes to crack this case. Start to finish, and the trial somehow occurs during that time period as well.
Yeah. Well, I will say the city is absolutely covered in cameras. I mean, we have cameras everywhere. So for something to go down and us not to get it on camera is pretty rare.
Yeah.
Because we all have access to all the DOT cameras too, all of the highway cameras, the traffic cameras that the news stations use. We have access to all of that stuff as well if it's going to help further investigation. But
Yeah, then you got to find the idiots.
yeah, well, that's the fun part. That's where we come in.
That's where they go into the swamp.
Yeah,
And that's where I hope the alligator eats them.
yeah, that has happened.
Or do you guys have crocodiles?
No, crocodiles are down in the Everglades. That's South Florida. We have alligators.
Fuck that.
But no, we had a guy not in Orlando, but in Daytona. Broke into a house, and the cop showed up and he took off in his car and ended up being a vehicle chase, and he bailed out of his car and ran into the swamp and ended up in a lake, and they had the air asset overhead on FLIR, and he just disappeared. They never found him, and big old gator got him.
That's when you just see that starting to happen. And again, I'm not saying this is police policy. This is what I do. But like, hey guys, lunch break?
Yeah.
Looks like you got some alligators coming around the guy. Let's just back it off.
Well, you're going to have to wait for the dive team anyway to come get
It's
us,
like
so-
it's like our train station, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Your Montana's trains.
Yellowstone.
Hold up a sec. Camera 2 just shut off.
Which one's camera 2?
This one.
Oh, because I probably unplugged it. Follow the cable down. You're going to find it to be unplugged.
It's plugged in.
It is?
This part is not, though.
Yeah. Sometimes I do that shit. Just turn it off and then back on.
So, Paul, how long was it before you were on SWAT when that pulse thing happened?
Hold on, dude.
I'm just.
How are we looking now?
Good.
He's got to cue the audio, dude.
No, we're good. The audio is kept going.
Oh,
Yeah, back to the
I thought
pulse
we were
shooting.
off.
Yeah.
Totally off.
No, so 7 years. I've been on the team 7 years. When that
How did
happened.
you start getting info about that? I'm assuming radio calls?
So, really, yes, I mean, it came in 911 calls, but that whole weekend, like there was like culminating events that led to that attack. Like that was the Pulse nightclub attack.
Like interconnected, or it just seems
No.
back in hindsight that things were escalating?
It in hindsight, things were. I mean, we were recognizing as it happened, but the Pulse nightclub was our third hostage rescue in 48 hours. Full team call out. Yep. So we had one. The first one was Friday, like midday, maybe late afternoon. Doesn't matter, but you know.
Do most of those resolve themselves in the person just giving up?
Yes, 99% of the time when SWAT gets called out and is on scene, it's a peaceful resolution.
How does it end up that way? They just realize that there's no, I mean, obviously surround and call out is a very traditional military tactic, especially in the modern era. And if you're on the inside of that, it doesn't take much intelligence to realize that you're not going to go anywhere.
Yep.
I would imagine a lot of people have a grandiose idea of they're going to go out in a blaze of glory, but presented with that, probably, like,
They don't.
yeah, you can talk yourself up into it, and then you're looking down the end of a rifle. I'm like, I was just joking about
Yep.
that.
They don't. And inside you're going like, you're looking at the guy's history, you're getting all the info on him, and you're like, all right, this is going to be a good one. Like, this is going to be worthy. And then they pussy out. And you're like, all right, never mind. But
Is it after they talk to a negotiator? Like, what is it that usually gets them to?
517 gas.
Is
The
that
great
CS gas?
equalizer. CS and OC mix.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
It is awful. It is absolutely awful. And it is the great equalizer. Now,
Yeah.
substance, like them being high on certain stuff, like I don't know what it is, can mitigate the effects. And some of them, they're just flat out crazy, which we had that weekend where they're eating gas and it's like they're totally normal. You're like,
Do you ever
oh,
find
boy.
them having gas masks?
Yeah, we have. We had a guy.
I mean, the internet's an amazing thing.
It
Unfortunately,
is.
you can buy too much shit on it.
Well, this guy, he was a Desert Storm vet, and he had his flak jacket, he had his mask, like the old, what do you call them, mop suits or whatever.
Yeah, mission-oriented protective
There it
posture.
is.
So he came to party.
He came to party, yeah, and so the gas wouldn't have been. We didn't deploy it on that because it was a hostage standoff. But the only reason we did with that one weekend, that first one, the weekend that Pulse happened, we deployed gas on the second one. But the first one, no, we did. We did the first two because it was like a child custody issue, and dad lost custody. Getting out of prison. Yeah, it was brutal. But then it came into he threatened with a firearm, threatened the life of his ex-wife, threatened the life of his kid, and it was like a 2-year-old toddler. And negotiation process was kind of back and forth. The guy was drinking a lot, so he was kind of falling asleep, waking up, falling asleep, and we finally got an opportunity. We had one of our phones in that we have all sorts of extra capability besides just being able to talk to us on, and we were able to determine that the guy had fallen asleep. So we found out that the toddler was in its bedroom. So we breached the window where the guy was asleep, rescued the toddler out, and then that way we only had him inside. And as soon as we launched gas, he was up and at him, came out running, and peaceful resolution.
People who have never been gassed don't understand how shitty it is.
It is, because it doesn't just affect like your breathing and your eyesight. It burns your skin. Like it is really, really uncomfortable.
And it's like a water faucet coming out of every fucking like uncontrollable snot for hours, tear. Like it's the worst.
Yeah. I go through it every year.
Yeah.
So, it's good.
We used to tase and gas each other for fun.
Yeah.
Not that it was fun for the person on the receiving end of
Sure.
that, but it was fun for us that we're doing it.
But even on
We
just
did some
regular
stuff
call
like
outs.
that too.
I told you about the tasers they issued us, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Is that
like-
for one day?
Like 2 days later, they're like, "Hey,
We need those back.
give those back." And we're like, "Well, we only have like 2 cartridges left anyway." They're like, "We gave you like 100." I'm like, we know.
If you had the new ones, I don't know how much you'd be playing around with these new ones. They are.
Hey man, I see people walking those things off all the time,
Yeah.
pulling the barbs out on their own. I mean, there is no tool that has a 100%
No.
solution other than shutting lights off.
No, I mean, like I said, like, depending on what substance they're on, it's the same thing with the gas. Like there's people, or they're just flat out crazy. They're just immune to some of this stuff.
That would be crazy to have a physiology that is not impacted by that gas. That is fucking wild.
Yeah, but then the rest of your life is just utter chaos because you're talking to, invisible people on the street, and
How do you know they're invisible? Just because you can't see
that's
them?
true. They're invisible to me. I'm not on that same wavelength, I guess, but
I guess not. We should go find that guy after this and talk to him. You guys want to go in on an ICBM? Like, hey, man,
perfect.
what's the down payment? We got like 500 cash between the three of us. Let's do this.
He'd be stoked. He would take that 500 in.
I don't know. It's Montana. You guys have been getting all sorts of weird balloons overhead, so maybe you can just get one right off of one of the balloons that's coming down.
That is what Glover thinks that they would do.
Yeah.
But I also feel like they have ICBM technology as well. I don't know the balloon thing. I don't know. I don't know. I'm pretty hard to spin up when it comes to stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of conspiratorial type thinking, even though I'm totally aware that conspiracy theorists, sometimes that they are correct and sometimes the conspiracies are true. It's all right. It doesn't mean you should paint with a broom on every time that something comes up like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
My concern is if they fly it over Montana, people with hunting rifles will be taking shots at it, and
Those rounds are coming down somewhere.
That's my concern.
Yeah.
What goes up must come down.
Yeah,
Just because
right.
you can see it in your scope doesn't mean you should be shooting at it. 60,000 feet. Not aware of a hunting rifle that has a range that's 60,000 feet so far.
No, not at all.
Okay, so hostage situation 1 was that within 48. And then
Yep.
what was the second one?
Second one was state troopers were in pursuit of a carjacking suspect from up north of Orlando area, and it came down the turnpike all the way into Orlando. So this was 24 hours after the first one when this one happens. And this guy gets off the highway, ends up in a residential area on the west side of Orlando, ends up in an apartment complex, crashes his car, randomly runs up to an apartment, kicks the front door in, goes inside. He's armed, and the couple inside are home.
That sucks. So now you got a barricaded suspect.
So we have a barricaded suspect. He knows that the occupants are in the house. He's not. They ran upstairs and hid in their bedroom. It was a 2-story apartment. They ran up and hid in their bedroom. He's downstairs. The troopers had the whole place surrounded, but then, this guy's an armed carjacker. Had a very quickly figured out that, okay, this place is occupied and we have an armed guy inside. We have a hostage situation here. It became a SWAT call out. We all get out there, and this dude was absolutely nuts. He was coming up to the sliding glass door. He never had a gun in his hand when we saw him. He was coming to the sliding glass door and like taunting us, banging on the door and all this. We were trying to get info to find out exactly where the homeowners were. We finally got them on the phone and figured out, okay, they were upstairs in the master bedroom. We're trying to get as much intel on them. Their bedroom door was locked, but the guy kept going up, was knocking on the door and talking to him through the door, and he was like completely crazy.
Well, plus it was probably a hollow core wooden door.
It was, yeah, your standard interior.
Yeah, so you could shoulder that open or put your fist through it. So that's not a whole lot of protection.
The best thing I can think of without talking to the guy is he was intentionally taunting them. Like he knew it was surrounded.
Yeah.
He was intentionally taunting them through the door to scare the living shit out of them. But he, it would have been building to the point where he would have forced entry into that room and then potentially, done some harm to them. But we ended up driving our armored personnel carrier up to it was kind of like a carport area without, not enclosed, but open carport area. And the master bedroom they had a little balcony outside of it. So we drove the armored personnel carrier up to the balcony, opened up the roof turret, and had them jump from the balcony down onto the truck, got them in through the turret hole, and got them out of there. So now we were just dealing with this crazy dude with a gun inside the house. And we filled this apartment with so many cans of gas. I mean,
and he just ate it.
he just ate it. Well, he hid in the bathroom upstairs, and he hid in the bathroom. So when the entry team went in, I was on the sniper team at the time, so I was outside eating gas because I was downwind and I didn't bring my gas mask like an asshole.
Super fun.
So yeah, and
Some lessons you have to learn by
yeah,
doing.
which I did.
I bet you haven't forgotten your gas mask since.
No, I'm not in the sniper team anymore. But no, yeah, I'm back on.
Yeah.
I'm back on assault on the entry.
But either
team,
way, even if you were still on the sniper team,
Right.
I bet you have 2 gas masks with you at all times at this point. That shit sucks.
you can't lay there on your rifle and provide actual cover for your team if you were just hacking and sneezing and coughing and your eyes
you
are red.
can't. I was gonna say you're like looking through like 4 different panes of tears. It's
Right.
like,
Yeah. It's terrible.
yeah.
So the entry team went in because this guy wasn't coming out, the gas. We sent the robot in, but we couldn't, robot couldn't locate where he was. So they went in, started doing their search, made their way upstairs. One of our team leaders that was middle of the stack held on the closed door, which was the bathroom door they ended up being in. And once he got his number 2, the other guys were working the open doors that were upstairs. And once he got his number 2, they popped the door and he went in first. He was hot side of the door. And as soon as he went in, this dude jumps out of the bathtub, grabs his rifle and pulls him down in the bathtub on top of him and starts fighting. Well, this place is filled with 517 gas. And team leader James, his gas mask came off.
Oh,
and
fuck.
now he's like literally fighting over his rifle with this guy, trying to like.
Can you use lethal force at that
Yeah.
point?
Oh yeah.
I was going to say, if
Yeah.
they grab a tool designed to take life, that's got to be enough right there.
Yeah, he absolutely could have. And you talk to him, and it was one of those things. It's like maintain control over his rifle and try and punch the guy, or lose control of the rifle and go for your handgun. And it was kind of back by the time that
While surrounded in a gas-filled environment.
while
with your
completely
gas
filled with
mask
gas,
off.
not being able to see, snotting and crying. Yeah, it was brutal. Another guy, that number 2 came in because it was a small room, so that number 2 held for a second. But then once he realized this, hey, the dude's in here and they were fighting, he went in and they handled business. No,
Little bathtub fight.
Yeah, no lethal
You don't
force
have that shit in
necessary.
the textbook.
But yeah,
Like, all right, guys, scenario A today is
did
you're going
not
to get
train-
drugged into a bathtub by a
right.
crazy man.
I do have bathtub showers in our shoot house, but we haven't trained that specific scenario. But yeah.
Dude, that's common though
It
for
is.
gas, for guys to, wet the towel, put it at the door frame, and then jump in the tub.
Yep.
Like we see that often.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
They jump in the tub.
I mean, maybe just, I don't know, maybe like
Have you
run
guys
in the
ever
water.
thought about putting gas through the bathroom window?
Well, this was an interior bathroom. There was no window.
All right, here I've already thought of a solution to this. We're going to create a new robot that drags a hose behind it.
Or we backfill the AC vent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even interior bathrooms, they're still going to have vents. Yeah, but in an apartment complex, you'd never know. Just gas everybody. That's the
Yeah.
solution.
Well,
Again, this is why I can't be a cop.
That happens. The stuff leaks through the walls,
Oh,
through
for
the
sure
doors,
it
to the
does.
seams. Like, because you evacuate every apartment
Yeah.
or every house that's around the scene anyway. But yeah, the fire department's got to come in after the fact with these giant fans, and it takes hours. And that stuff settles in carpet. It settles on furniture. I mean, you might come in and not feel it, and you'll sit down, dude. You'll sit down on the couch like 2
I'm
days
sure
later,
that
you're like
couple is
sneezing.
why did we get chosen?
Oh, dude, it was completely random.
Yeah.
Like completely random. There's
You know who would have the answer
poor
to
luck.
this scenario? Brian Callen.
Oh, yeah.
He would have it figured out. No, that stuff does stick. You remember when Travis's dog
Yes.
bit the bear spray can? So this dog is basically a dinosaur, right? It's a Dutch Malinois mix or one of the two. It's a meat missile,
It's a
right?
Okay.
It's full for a missile. And why it was interested in a bear spray canister, I don't know. Some of life questions don't have answers, but full on.
Oh boy.
And I think it's orange. The bear spray stuff
Was this inside or outside?
Yes. Downstairs at our jiu-jitsu coach's house.
Oh, nice.
And I remember them talking about if they were like mixing it with detergent to try to cut because it was. It might have been grease based. So
Yeah, it's probably oil based.
yeah, it was oil based. And so we went over there, I think 3 weeks later to watch a UFC. And if you sat on the cushion of their couch wrong, your eyes started watering.
That's exactly. It
That
definitely
shit was
lingers.
going nowhere fast.
It lingers on your clothes,
Yeah.
and I mean, after a call out, and your kit's all covered in gas. I mean, it could be a week later,
Yeah.
whatever, and you're throwing your stuff back on for a search warrant, and next thing you know, everybody's sneezing. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, okay, it's still there. You feel it, but.
So that was number 2.
That was number 2. Like I said, so that was 24 hours from the first one on Friday. So now we're in the Saturday. We got done with that around 8:30, 9 p.m. We left the apartment complex and went back to one of our substations that was in the west side of Orlando just to debrief the incident real quick because everybody was pretty worn out because we were there for, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 hours dealing with that. And it was hot. It's June in Florida. It was 100 degrees outside, so everybody was smoked. And we went back to the substation, had a quick little debrief as a group in the parking lot, and our team commander at the time was just, like, hey, guys, like, good job, and, stay locked on, go home, clean up your gear, square away your shit, and get ready for the next one. And everybody's like, oh, duh, knock on wood, don't say that. Like, ha ha ha, like joking around. But we've always said they come in threes. Every call out we get historically, within a certain number of hours, we get 3.
Of the same type, or
No,
just 3 call outs?
just 3 full team call outs.
Okay.
Full team call outs.
That's an interesting
I don't know why.
Anecdotal statistic, but I'm sure it holds up.
I don't know why. 14 years on the team, and that's stayed true for 14 years for me so far. They've come in threes.
Have you found that to be true up here, Nelson?
I definitely remember some of our most serious call outs having another one right after it and another one right after that.
Yeah.
And
That
a
is
couple,
wild.
Yeah. And
I don't know why.
I don't know moon phase. I don't know what.
Yeah,
it is,
you can, whatever voodoo
Don't
you want
start
to put
chanting.
on it.
And I know he has a crystal
Dude, full
collection in
moons.
his car, but
Full moons are definitely a busier night.
They are.
all right.
Full moons and holidays.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's always the holidays.
Oh, the holidays are obvious.
So-
Don't have to work tomorrow. It's a Sunday. Monday's off. Sunday nights are busy.
Oh, it's Thanksgiving Day. You want to enjoy a nice meal with your family? Oh, guess what? Your pager's going off. So
Yeah.
Dude,
have fun.
the 4th of Julys that fall on a Saturday or Friday night are the craziest. When they fall, like they just have one day off.
Yeah.
You can't really hammer it as hard because you got to go to work the next day. Yeah.
3-day weekend though.
Yeah, the 3-day weekend. those are gnarly.
Giddy up.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, we had that conversation of, hey, square away your gear and get ready for the next one. So by the time I got home, cleaned up my gear, everything, it was, I don't know, almost midnight. Got into bed, went to sleep to about 2:05, 2:03, 2:05, just a couple of minutes after 2 a.m., pager goes off. Wake up, trying to, completely disoriented, trying to figure out what's going on. And I look at my phone and it's like full team call out, active shooter, Pulse nightclub, gives out the address. And I'm like, this is a training page. Like, there's no way this is real. And I wake my wife up and I'm like, hey, read this. I'm like, and she's like, yeah. I was like, I'm not dreaming, right? Like, this is actually happening. She's like, yeah, I'm reading what you're reading. And I was like, holy shit. And then, the text messages and the phone calls, because we have a phone tree.
Yeah.
On our roster, we call the guy above us on the roster and below us on the roster to make sure everybody gets a page. So everybody, is on the way. And I mean, I lived about 25 miles from where the incident occurred at the time. And I think I got there by the time I geared up, I got there within 15 minutes. I mean, I'm
assuming everybody
flying.
is braking the engine on their vehicle at that point, trying to get there.
It was, and that was just the SWAT call out, because you had the initial, not our immediate officer response call that went out, what we call our signal 43, which is send everybody. So we had cops.
I'm assuming that's the response to an active shooter.
It was, yeah. And there were some officers that were already, by the time I got there, like the shooting was already done. The guy had already barricaded himself.
Was he still alive at that point?
Yep. Yeah.
Walk me through what exactly happened there, because I'm sure now that years have already passed. I'm sure there was a full investigation. How did it actually play itself out?
So it's actually, and Nelson and I were talking about this when we were ice fishing the other day. It actually played out, and there was a lot more details that never made it to the news for whatever reason. I'm not going to speculate about what group was trying to utilize this tragedy to benefit them or not. Like what happened, and some of the stuff doesn't get put out there, and that's fine because it may not be relevant to whatever the conversation is at the time, right? Yeah. This guy had been planning an attack in the Orlando area for a while. He'd been scouting all sorts of locations with his wife. They were a team. He was a armed security guard in the Orlando area. I don't remember, or no, not in Orlando. He worked out of Fort Pierce. So he was an armed security guard down at Fort Pierce, but he chose Orlando because of the location, the name behind it, and all that to make an impact. Yeah. But they determined through cell phone location pings after the fact, like where he had been. And, the narrative that was pushed out about Pulse was that this attack was a targeted attack on this club for a reason, because of the patrons that frequent that club.
The LGBTQ, I'm sorry, I don't know the rest of the stuff they've added to it, community.
Yeah. And it was completely random. That club was picked completely random.
Did they ever determine why he selected that one?
We can only speculate. And I could say from what I've heard, and I can say my interpretation of the circumstances, his initial attack was going to be Disney Springs. which is like a bar restaurant area of Disney. It's not like you don't go through park gates to get in there type of thing. It's like it's a little more open.
It's like Disney adjacent.
Yeah. And, we're like really high-end restaurants and movie theaters and things like that. They believe that was going to be his initial attack just because that's where like the majority of his cell phone pings were. And there was some corroboration with that with his wife, interviews after the fact. I don't know any details on that because that was all on the federal side. But the belief is that when he got there that Saturday, so June 8th, he saw a whole bunch of the sheriff's office deputies because they all work overtime shifts there, and it was shift change. So there was just cops all over the place.
Hardened target.
And, the belief is that, he probably wouldn't have made it through the parking lot to attack what he wanted to attack, to get to the number of people that he wanted to get to without getting shot first. So they left and just started driving north, and because Disney area is south of downtown Orlando. Well, like I mentioned earlier about on the weekends, how we shut down all the main roads around all the clubs and stuff downtown Orlando.
Yeah.
Well, by the time he got up there, the roads were closed. So he wouldn't have been able to park and get close to any of the clubs, not to mention there's a cop and a cop car in every single intersection of all of downtown. Again, like it's a huge deterrent, which we do it for a reason, obviously, so that people can go out and enjoy themselves safely. But he couldn't drive close enough to where he would get seen trying to lug, he had like one of those Blackhawk, like pre-sewed mesh
he rolled in
vest
pretty
on.
heavy, didn't he?
Yeah, he had an MPX rifle caliber, so MCX rifle caliber, and a Glock handgun.
Okay.
Multiple mags for both.
With chest rig, though? And,
Yep. Yeah, chest rig.
Did he have armor of any kind, soft or plates?
I don't know. I don't believe so. I think he just had the
Carrier?
Just the carrier.
Okay.
But I mean, he was a licensed armed security guard in the state of Florida. So he had been through the background check. I mean, he had no criminal history, but he had been through the background check. He was licensed to carry concealed, armed, exposed on the property that he's employed by. So the belief is he just started driving. He couldn't go to the clubs in downtown, so he just started to drive south. Well, just south of downtown Orlando happens to be Pulse nightclub. It's on the main road, but it's surrounded by residential and like commercial buildings. So it's the only club in that area. We had a off-duty officer that was working the club, but he was a detective, so he had an unmarked car that was out along the street. Not a marked police car, doesn't look like it, and he wasn't on property. He was across the street at the Dunkin' Donuts dealing with the domestic that he got flagged down for. So he's completely occupied dealing with this chaos across the street. So when Asshole rolls up to the club, he drives by and he's like, oh, look, this place is packed, and there's nothing to deter me from wanting to go in here. So he was able to back his van right up to the building in the valet parking lot. The clubs close at 2 a.m., where they can stop serving alcohol at 2 a.m. and then everybody has to be out the door by like 2:45.
Yeah.
And so he was able to back his car right up to the building. He got out. He walks up facing the main strip is a big open patio area that looks directly into the club. So he walked up. You see him look into the club from surveillance footage. You see him look into the club. He's looking around. He's like, "This is my spot." Goes back to his car, gets all his shit, comes back around, goes right through the front door, shoots the bouncer right away, and then goes into the club and just starts lighting everybody up.
And he just started shooting indiscriminately.
Just completely random. I mean, there was people. It was packed, absolutely packed, and it's not a big club.
Yeah.
And it was
hard to miss, probably.
It really was. And when he was missing, he was hitting somebody else in the background.
Yeah.
So it was just a free for all. And
how many rounds did he end up firing?
I don't know. It was a lot.
What was the total number? I obviously heard about the Pulse shooting, but what was the total number of fatalities in that?
49.
49 deaths.
49 deaths.
How many injured? Do you remember?
I want to say 70, I believe. I might be wrong, but it's in that ballpark. I mean, it was a lot.
So that's a couple hundred rounds he got out.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. And then, not to mention like just some smaller injuries. Some of the injured weren't necessarily from gunshot wounds. They were injured from, getting trampled and stampeded and stuff too. But this is 2 blocks from our hospital, which is a level 1 trauma hospital in Central Florida, like the only one. Like anybody in Central Florida that has a serious injury, whether it be a car accident, has to get life lighted or taken from, injury or something like that needs immediate care, they go to Orlando Regional Medical Center, which is 2 blocks from this club. So a lot of people were saved because of how close proximity this hospital was.
Higher level of care.
Right. And so he just goes in, he starts shooting. The officer hears the gunfire that was working the club. He goes running across the street. He starts to make his entry through the patio area, sees the guy with the rifle. He starts shooting around. He only had a handgun. At the time, only patrol officers were issued long guns. That has since changed. Now every officer in the department, regardless of your assignment, is issued one. And he starts shooting rounds at the bad guy, which forced bad guy. We don't believe any of them hit him. I don't know for sure. But it forced him to stop shooting and move around the back of the club.
Changes behavior.
So at the time, because the call went out at that time, that's happening, officers started showing up on scene. And the first couple guys that showed up on scene ended up being SWAT guys that were working. And they jump out, grab their rifles, they move up to the club, and you can hear the gunfire. They thought the gunfire was coming at the main door, so they decided to breach a window off to the side of the door to make their entry. There was like a group of 3 or 4 of them, and so they breached, made entry through the window, had an exchange of gunfire, which forced the bad guy down this narrow hallway, which was a dead end that led to a bathroom left and right. So a T intersection at the end, bathroom left, bathroom right. After that initial exchange right there, all shooting stopped. So we're talking, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 minutes into the whole thing.
That's a long fucking time.
No, actually, I would say less than that. I'm exaggerating. I would say probably closer to 5, to be honest with you.
That's still a long time.
But that's average. The average shooting that occurs in these events is anywhere from, the entire event is done in less than 10 minutes, like on average. But it forced him into the bathroom. And
was he in there with anybody, or was it unknown to you guys?
It was unknown at the time. We didn't know. The assumption was made that there was, but and I talk about this a lot when I teach our active shooter response for the department. There's different critical incidents that have occurred, from Columbine up until present day that have evolved the law enforcement response to an active shooter. At the time in 2016, the national standard was when the shooting stops, you stop. So if it's not active and there is no shooting, you're going to hold what you have, unless you have an immediate access to the individual, but you're going to hold what you have and you're going to wait for resources. You're going to wait for SWAT, you're going to wait for negotiators, and try and then end the rest of it peacefully.
What is it now?
Now it is changed from stop the killing and stop the dying to stop the dying. So if you can confirm that there are victims inside that are injured and bleeding out or need care, shooting or no shooting, you're going to treat it as it's active. You're going to make entry and you're going to go in there. And that changed in 2020.
Did the guys in Texas just not get that memo at the school?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to. Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
There's really not a good optic on that one that makes sense at all.
No, and doesn't make much sense to me either.
Yeah.
And I study this stuff in depth because I teach it. So it's, my responsibility to understand it. And that one is really tough pill to swallow. But
human beings aren't perfect and failures can occur. And
of course,
it's really tough to look at that one as anything other than a catastrophic fucking failure.
Yeah. And it doesn't help with the public image that everything's on video.
Yeah.
That just makes it even worse because now you have people able to physically watch what went right and what went wrong, and you're just going, oh man, this is tough. But at the time in 2016, that wasn't the case. So if it was no longer active, you would stop and wait for resources, which is what happened. And not to mention, it was a narrow hallway. They didn't know what bathroom he was in. They knew it was either left or right. There was only 2 options, but they didn't know what bathroom he was in.
Were there officers all the way up to the other end of that hallway, though? They were basically holding off at the end of that hallway?
Yeah, so there was a dance floor between where the hallway for the bathroom started and then a bar. So what they did is they positioned themselves behind the bar, so they had a straight shot down the hallway and they had some concealment, and they just held there until more people could show up.
When did you roll up on scene?
I rolled up on scene about 2:20 in the morning, so about 20 minutes after the incident kicked off, because he started shooting at about 2:01, so roughly in that area.
So they were still holding at that point. He was still in the bathroom.
Yep, and I was getting those infos over the radio as I was coming that the shooting had stopped, and that they had him contained in an area. I showed up on the main road that's in front of the club, Orange Avenue. Directly across the street from Orange Avenue, or from the club, is an Einstein Bagels and a 7-Eleven. I pulled into the 7-Eleven parking lot, and I get out, and behind the Einstein they started their casualty collection point, their CCP. So while the SWAT guys were holding that hallway, all the other officers that were showing up immediately started going in and just started pulling
just
victims
dragging
out.
the wounds out, yeah.
And patrons of the club were doing the same. I mean, it was chaos. You had cops and citizens, which was great. Everybody's working together trying to save lives, but it was like incredibly unorganized because you had some people taking, and we saw this at Vegas with that active shooter too, but you had some people taking victims that were their friends, putting them in a car and driving them to the hospital. So what kept happening is people were getting dropped off at the hospital, not by, paramedics or by police. And then the hospital's calling going, hey, we have gunshot victims here. So the way it was getting interpreted over dispatch was that we had another active shooter at the hospital.
Oh, shit.
So, take that on crack and you have Las Vegas incident.
Yeah.
Because the same thing was happening with the casinos. The casinos were calling out gunshot victims and they thought they had multiple active shooters in the strip. So
I had not thought about that.
Absolute chaos. Absolute chaos. I'm buddies with one of the guys on their sniper team and we talked about that whole incident. It's just like, logistical nightmare, absolute nightmare.
That had to look like a complete war zone, though, between that 7-Eleven and the Einstein and the club.
So I got out of the car, and I'd been a cop, 8 years or so at the time, so 9 years roughly, and I get out. I've seen some crazy shit, especially working in a metropolitan area like Orlando. I've seen some crazy shit, and I got out of there, and I was still in disbelief that this was real, because of like the magnitude of what was happening. And the paramedics that were treating the victims behind the Einstein, they're trying to assess the wounds of the gunshot wounds and stuff. So they got their little saline bottles and they're squirting saline on them so they can kind of see the extent of it. Well, the sheer number of victims behind that Einstein Bagels mixed with the saline that they were using to check the wounds literally created a river of blood that was coming down the parking lot into the curb drainage running down the road. And there was so much blood in the air, you could smell the iron in there. It was like somebody took a handful of pennies and shoved it in my face. And it was like getting hit in the face with a baseball bat. Like, you want to talk about like a wake up call. I'm like, holy shit, this is real. Like, and it was hard to process, like, because now I'm like, all right, where do I need to go? What do I need to do? I got a job to do. Where am I needed? And I'm trying to figure it out. And it was just chaos because there's so much stuff was happening. There was police cars everywhere. And there was guys that left their squad cars lights and sirens on just in the middle of the road, which didn't help. It just added to the chaos because now you got a siren going off in the car behind you, and you're just like, God, it's hard to even just have a conversation, hear what's going on over the radio, just trying to figure out what's going on in this chaos when that adds to it all.
Did you guys ever think about like turning them off?
My new car, when you go to park. So my new, the way my radio set up and my siren on my new truck.
Your new shotgun mobile?
Yes. When you put it in park, it shuts the siren off. You can override it if you need it from park, but it shuts it off. So like in a
Well, that would be really
stop.
convenient.
Yeah, but anyway.
Or one of the other officers could go flip a switch.
Well,
I'm
car's
assuming
locked.
They'd be breaking a window to do it, but
sometimes you need
most
to break
likely.
windows.
Yeah, for sure.
But in that particular incident, I think you guys would have been okay.
Yeah, but I think that was like looking
It was
back
the least
now,
of your worries.
It was.
I get
Looking
it.
back now, I can, process how much it added to the chaos of just the atmosphere outside. But
In the moment, you had other things that you needed to triage.
right. So that weekend, I said I was on the sniper rifle for the other two calls. I was an apprentice on the sniper team at the time. So I'd been on the sniper team for 4 years at the time, but just as an apprentice. We didn't have any openings as full-time snipers. So I'd been to sniper school, I was certified, I trained with the sniper team, but I wasn't a full-time sniper. I was full-time entry, full-time on the assault element. So I had covered for two other guys that were off for the other two call-outs. So I had supplemented them on those other two call-outs on the rifle. So when I showed up the Pulse, like, my primary is going to be throw my heavy gear on and support the guys inside for the rescue in the event that it goes down. So I moved my car from the 7-Eleven because I was in a bad spot. Moved down the block, and I ended up parking in this church parking lot, and there was another guy on the team, Billy, who was one of the full-time snipers. And we're moving super fast. We're trying to get up there as quick as possible. And Billy's like, hey, what gear are you grabbing? I was like, I'm grabbing my entry gear. And he's like, well, I don't know where my partner is. Grab your stick, grab your sniper shit. Let's go. I was like, all right, cool. So I grabbed that stuff on, threw it on. Billy and I moved up to where the Einstein was, trying to meet up with some of the other, with our sniper team leader, Dave, trying to figure out exactly what was going on, try and get a picture, a brief, figure out. And we ended up kind of, we like to try and pick, at least like to get a team on each side of the building.
Yeah.
So I ended up pairing up with my sniper team leader, and he pushed the other guys out to the immediate areas first. So like the front doors, like the main entrance, which would be our one side entrance would be our two side. Immediately got those guys up, got 2 guys up on the Einstein, so we could get somebody high on the front. So we got a team up there, and then Dave and I moved around to take the backside, the 3 side of the building. There wasn't any doors back there, but interior, we found out that there's roof access. So we needed to get it. You couldn't see that part of the roof from the front or the side. You could only access it from the back of the building. So at one point, the fire truck that was next to the CCP there at the Einstein, like, I've got my rifle, my helmet, my nods, my kit, my backpack with all my shit in it, and we're trying to get on this single-story roof structure that was like 30 yards. Like, they basically shared a parking lot with the nightclub in the back. We were trying to get on the roof so we could cover the roof of the club. I'm running through this intersection. Like, I just ran up to a fire rig and just grabbed this extension ladder off the side of it. I'm running through the main intersection with like all my shit on, with like a 20-foot extension ladder balanced on one arm. And I'm running through, everybody's looking at me like, what the fuck are you doing? It's like, we have to get on this roof and we don't have time to wait for anything else. Like, we got to go. Luckily there was a patrol officer there that ended up seeing me like, hey, this dude needs some help. So he helped me carry the ladder the rest of the way. And then held it for us, and we got up on top. And I was telling Nelson, it was fucking super shitty. It was like good position logistically, but it was super shitty because it was a really steep peaked roof. So if you didn't have your arm over the peak of it to hang on, you were sliding down that thing the whole time. So like we were like physically working to stay in position, just to stay in position.
What you're trying to say is that the firefighters actually saved you, though.
They did.
That's what I took
They
out.
did. Yeah.
When things get tough for police, what I'm hearing is you go to the fire ring and get the tools you need.
We did, but I didn't ask him. I just stole it.
But they were there for you. They knew you might need it.
Did they get it back, or did you spray paint it black and call it a SWAT ladder?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know whatever happened to that ladder, because once we came down after it was all done, we were sequestered away from the scene, so I have no clue.
I'm sure a
but
crackhead has that ladder
probably.
somewhere, if I'm being
I'm
honest.
sure. It was dropped off at the scrapyard for recycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get up, we're covering the roof, and all the info's coming in. We still don't know what bathroom the dude's in. I can't speak to what the guys inside were going through and what they experienced. I mean, I've heard their stories, but man, those guys that were on my team that were in that club for hours and hours and hours while these cell phones and all the victims are just ringing over and over and over again. Because, obviously the news has gone out and all their loved ones and friends are trying to find out if they made it. And it's just hours of them ringing, just blood and brain matter everywhere. It was just chaos. And they just had to stand there and hold that frickin' bathroom. The all the patrol officers that were coming in behind them that were doing they were literally coming in, checking pulse. If there was a pulse, they were dragging them out. If they were dead, they were leaving them. Very shortly after we got a foothold within and around the structure, the bad guy calls 911 and immediately starts doing he pledges allegiance to ISIS. He's doing all this praying in Arabic and the whole nine. He's doing the whole deal. Infos from our intel units coming in about who he is. We're finally getting like his driver's license photo, getting text out to the team so that way we can, get an idea of what he looks like and what we're dealing with. And we're getting all the info over the radio about this guy's allegiance and his radicalism and the whole nine. And during that whole process, and this is something that never made it public, but he said that he had suicide vests with him. He had explosive vests.
That changes the chessboard for you guys.
Oh, yeah. Well, this was the same time we found out there was victims in the bathroom with him. So this wasn't just like hey, he's in the bathroom by himself. He's in the bathroom with people that ran in there to hide. So it is a hostage standoff. And there was a bunch of people that were wounded that ran in that bathroom and ended up bleeding out and dying of their injuries that were in there. He didn't shoot anybody when he was in there. All that was done prior to him running once he got confronted by the first couple of dudes who went in. But we were also finding out there's victims in there. Well, those victims had their cell phones and they were texting their friends or their family or whatever what this guy was saying. So then their loved ones or friends were then calling 911 saying, hey, so-and-so is in the bathroom and he says he's putting, or he says he's got suicide vests he's going to put on him.
God, what a bizarre way to get information.
So you want to talk about like corroborating info? Yeah. Like we have him telling us he has IED vests and then we have victims inside, hostages inside telling him he's putting IED vests on him. Like what more do you need to believe the guy? We're like, holy shit. Yeah. So as a new sniper, I mean, not new on the rifle, but new as actually deploying on a real call out, I have to have this conversation with my sniper team leader. Like, hey, if one of these hostages comes out with an IED vest, like we have to like seriously make up our mind of what we're going to do. Cause we cannot let them get to other victims or other guys on the team. It's like, holy shit. Like that was a heavy thing to process. Like I might have to shoot an innocent civilian that is being forced against their will to do this. Thank God that didn't happen. But that was like that's a tough thing to process, Yeah. And we're getting now what we consider like corroborating info that this dude's got SVS and he's going to put them on hostages and send them out the bathroom if his demands aren't met. And I don't remember.
What were his demands?
I don't remember. It wasn't like, hey, get me an airplane and a truck full of cash. It wasn't anything shit like that. I really don't remember. I think it was more like getting his story out, like the notoriety or whatever the fuck he was trying to talk about. Like, honestly, I've drowned it out. Like, I remembered it at the time, but I haven't even gone back to even want to remember because I just don't give a shit. Yeah. And most of it was just ideological. It was just all the stuff he was just talking about and whatever. But he also said he had explosives in his van. He had a V-bit. Okay, cool. We run an explosive dog through the parking lot. Dog hits on a white van that's backed up to the building. We're like, uh-oh.
Fuck.
Great. Now to top it off, again, corroborating information to make us believe that everything he's saying is real. He keeps setting the alarm off on his key fob in his car. Which,
interesting.
From Dave and I that are up on the roof, we're 35 yards from the van. I mean, we're looking directly at it. We have the high ground looking over the parking lot. And Dave looks over at me and he's like, he's trying to set this bomb off. We're like, yeah. So he is like, you know how explosions work, right? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, the blast. It goes up and out. And I'm like, okay. And he was like, look where we're at.
Yeah, you guys would have eaten.
I'm like, we're up and out.
Force.
Yeah. Like, and he looked at me and he's like, do you want to get down and move? And it's like, there's no other place to be able to cover the back of this building than here. This is the only place we could get it. So it's like, we can't move. There is no place for us to go. While this info was coming in with the explosives, they pushed the perimeter units and the medical personnel out like 1,500 feet or whatever it was outside of like a, suspected blast radius.
Yeah, MSD, minimum safe distance.
Exactly. And they gave our team the same option. Like any of the SWAT personnel, like you guys can move outside of this, but nobody, it was presented to us by our commander, him already knowing what the answer was going to be. It wasn't even a question. It was more like, if you want, you can do this, but everybody's like, yeah, no, we're not going anywhere. This is our job. So, and there was a lot of patrol officers that also ignored it because that was the point that fire department was not getting anywhere close to the building. So the only way to get victims out was our guys with pickup trucks. They were driving right up to the front of the club. They'd load up the bed of their pickup truck bed with victims and drive them right to the hospital themselves. And they did that for hours. Just, and again, right next to the van, like no regard of their own safety. It was like, let me get these people out of here as quickly as possible. They did a phenomenal job. So now we got SFS and VBIDs, like, which with the intel corroborated, like this is a bad day. So knowing that this was going to happen or potentially happen, we set up for an exterior breach of the exterior wall, which ended up being the 3 side where Dave and I were. And so that we became the breach cover for the breach and assault in the event that the rescue call was made. So they're like, they get their intel. It's like, hey, it's hollow concrete cinder block. Cool. So they set their charge for that. Sensitive to the fact that there's going to be people inside. They're trying to look at like the pipes coming out of the building, trying to determine exactly like, hey, we think that we're roughly at the bathroom where he's at. By that time, we had determined like he was in the bathroom on the right, not the one on the left. And so they tried to set the charge, their wall charge, where they believed was the bathroom. He gave I think he gave like a 5-minute countdown type deal. He's like, you got 5 minutes to do whatever the hell it is that he was asking before he sends out the hostages with the SFS. So that's the triggering event right there. You give us a countdown, like it's go time.
Yeah.
So they stacked up, set off the charge, and it ended up being filled concrete block, not hollow concrete block. So it was undercharged, fail breach. It significantly weakened the wall, but it wasn't enough to actually cause like an actual hole. So we used the ram on the front of our armored truck to push the rest of the concrete block in. It ended up working out perfect in our favor in the end, but the breach where the charge was set, where we ended up making that hole, ended up being in the T intersection hallway between the 2 bathrooms. It wasn't in the bathroom that he was in or the one that he wasn't. So at the end of the event, that ended up working well in our favor. But as soon as we determined, okay, hey, here's the T intersection hallway, we're able to identify where we're at now from outside. The entry guys immediately went to the bathroom opposite of where the bad guy was. They used a handheld ram. This guy on the team, Tim, he's a fucking legend, salt of the earth dude. Handheld ram, and he just started manually bashing holes through filled concrete block to create ports to pull victim hostages out. And he's a big dude. He's like, 6'5", 280, just mammoth of a man. And he's just up there just doing work, punching holes in this concrete. And they pulled 8 or 9 victims out. There was like a bigger guy, victim that was in the bathroom there, and he was trying to get out first. And Tim's like, no, hey, those dudes can't walk. These, you go and you help them out first before I'm going to let you out of here, since you were able to. And so we were able to get everybody out of that bathroom. So now we knew the entire club was evacuated. All the victims were out, except for the bathroom where the bad guy was. So as soon as while that was occurring, while they were pulling hostages out of that, they started to breach the exterior wall of the bathroom that asshole was in. And as soon as that first port happened from the armored truck pushing the concrete in and punched a hole, it forced the bad guy out of the bathroom to the hole where we had just breached in the hallway. And he came out with a gun in each hand, rifle in one hand, handgun in the other, and he came out just sending them with both. Bam, 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 bam. Hit one of our guys directly in the NVG mount on his forehead of his helmet, dropped him clean to the ground. Thank God the round didn't penetrate his helmet.
Yeah.
It caused the screw mount to spall, which split his forehead open. But superficial wound as far as what could have
I'll take that
happened.
over a rifle pistol round to the
Hell
forehead.
yeah. Hell yeah. Like, man, it was exactly on the screw mount too for the NVG plate. And, but as soon as he came out in that porthole, I'm on my rifle and I'm looking through. All I ever saw of the guy was like a portion of his lower leg. By the time this team that was right there that was getting ready, like they were just squeezing up, getting ready to make their rescue. And the guy came out like right at the moment they're getting ready to kick off. And they just absolutely dumped him. It was like, I don't know, 9, 10 guys that just slid into this dude. And Mike, the dude who took the round into the helmet, he was like knocked out for like a brief second, hits the ground, sits up, throws his UMP on full auto and just dumps a mag into this guy. And they're all scrambling. They're still now working on breaching the bathroom where the bad guy was, where the other hostages are. The breach caused the water pipes to break.
Fuck.
Right? Because the toilets were on that wall.
Yeah, of course.
So, and this is where it gets really fucked up. If it isn't already fucked up enough, this is where it gets really fucked up. So that guy was waiting for us to come into the bathroom. And to make entry into that bathroom, it was like 2 90-degree turns, like a Z to get in there. the portion of the bathroom, like when you actually get through the narrow hallway and get into the bathroom, some of the victims that were in there that bled out and died, he built a wall of dead bodies to block that hallway off about waist height. So if that rescue kicked off and our guys went in that main entry, which was the plane because that was the only way in that bathroom, they would have been met with a wall of dead bodies and he was standing there waiting for him. It would have been
gnarly.
Yeah, like gnarly shit. And that wall of dead bodies was blocking the water from draining out of the bathroom. And now we got victims in there drowning in their own blood. So our guys went into the bathroom through the portholes that we made entry into the bathroom, and they're just like picking up bodies out of the water that were face down, seeing if they were alive. I think we pulled 7 people out of there, survived out of that bathroom. And yeah, it was literally a giant room full of blood because of the toilet water and the victim's blood, and it was like knee deep.
Did they burn that structure to the ground?
No, it's a memorial now.
I mean, that's better than being a business that's open, I guess.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was super fucked.
How did that impact? I mean, obviously there's the aspect of the survivors, the families, the people that lost loved ones, but what kind of impact did that have on the officers that were there that day?
Pretty heavy. We had a couple officers, Mike, the one who took the round in the forehead being one of them, rightfully so. He ended up just not being able to deal with that near-death encounter, and struggled a lot with it, and ended up getting a PTSD medical retirement about a year after that, 2 years after that, roughly. A lot of officers to this day are still struggling with it, and there was a huge support network. I mean, our team, and you know how it is when you work closely with a bunch of guys like that try to be these tough guys. There's nothing that like no human being needs to experience that. Like with the dead bodies and the cell phones ringing and a bathroom flooding with blood and just victims everywhere, and the threat of getting blown up or having to shoot a hostage that has an S-vest on, like no human being needs to deal with that much trauma in that short amount of time and walk away totally normal. Like I don't believe anybody can walk away totally normal. Doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to process that stress, but that is an amount of stress. That's a significant event that is hopefully one in a lifetime. And I hope
But you
never
leave
happens
that
again.
event a different person than you were going into it, for sure.
You do, because now you're looking through every event, anything that you deal with going forward, in any call you go to, you're looking through that lens of like worst case scenario. Like I just witnessed worst case scenario. Like it literally was like a training scenario. Like I'm going to make the most fucked up training scenario on this training day for these guys I have to deal with. I couldn't have wrote a better scenario than that for just a logistical nightmare in every aspect, tactical nightmare, trying to plan the rescue and the breach and everything. I mean, it was awful. But yeah, we had a bunch of guys, and there's a bunch of guys that are still dealing with it. There was a huge outpouring of support, not just for the community that was affected, but obviously for the first responders, police and firefighter and paramedic that were there and dealing with it. Our team has never been closer since that event, especially almost losing one of our guys. But I mean, our team has really grown so close since 2016 from that whole weekend, because really it was just a whole cumulative, events that built up to this that was still even hard to believe that was real. And we got together as a group multiple times after that, and it was really like making sure that everybody's really living the everyday of like, being your brother's keeper and watching each other's back. And it wasn't just like, hey, I'm watching your back on this call. Like I'm watching your back. Like if I'm starting to see you struggling, or that you got like, I'm going to make sure I'm going to come up and talk to you about it and make sure that, hey, if you need help, like I'm going to help you try and find it at the time, which, there was a bunch of programs that were out there and a lot of guys utilized it. But I think the biggest thing that event impacted, at least on the first responder level, was, and it really goes underreported or not talked about, I should say, is the effect that it had on the families of the people that were there struggling. Because that secondary trauma is a legitimate problem. You know, there's husbands or wives or whatever that are home that are now seeing their loved one changed as a person, and that affects them and how they deal and how their marriage is or how the relationship is, whatever the case may be, like, and how they have to process stress. And now they're worried to death. They're like, well, I don't want my husband to go back to work or my wife to go back to work, because what if they have to deal with this again and they get shot and killed or whatever. So now every single time that their loved one leaves the door to go to work, that is on their mind. And that cumulative stress builds and builds and builds. And that secondary trauma is, it rarely gets treated, because it's like hard to understand that your stress and your trauma can be passed on to your loved ones, because you're either using them to vent, using them to confide in and whatever you're dealing with. But it's a huge problem in the first responder community. And, you know, it doesn't just have to be a major event like Pulse. It just be like, you talk about the number of calls that you go to in a career where you're dealing with dead kids and car crash victims. Yeah. I mean, just terrible shit, like child abuse stuff. Like, there's nothing, like, now, especially being a father, like, there's nothing that like enrages me more than when you see kids as victims or innocent, like, animals as victims, just like true actual victims that have no choice in this. And that shit builds up over time, and it causes a lot of problems if you don't have an outlet, you know, like, and I encourage everybody, like, have hobbies, maybe not as many as Nelson, because you'll never be at work, but have hobbies.
That's a true story right there, actually. You need to have hobbies, but not Nelson level hobbies.
Right.
Whatever happened with the wife in that situation?
So she was interviewed heavily by the Bureau, and then released and is out in the ether, unknown.
Interesting.
Yeah.
God, I hope she gets hit by traffic in a crosswalk.
Now, I don't know if
I don't know what that says about me, but
I would imagine they probably keep tabs on her. I can only assume. But as far as like on our level, like, I have no idea. I just know
sometimes drone strikes are necessary.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah. But they, as far as my understanding with that guy, there was no like actual known trips overseas to, like,
you don't need to have
personally get radicalized. There was a lot.
Internet.
Yeah, there was a lot of internet history, a lot of, you know, blogs and forums and shit that he had some activity on.
That's the thing about ideologies. The beauty of the internet, the interconnectivity of people, and I mean, let's be honest with these fucking things. It's like I have access to more information, like the Library of Congress is on my phone, and then everything else too. And it's great. I was texting with my dad today. I can talk with my dad or my friends and look shit up pretty much every day. My middle son will ask me something, and I'm like, how do you fill in the blank?
Right.
But you can also stumble into shit that's incredibly dangerous.
Sure.
And ideologies are dangerous, and information can be dangerous. And I'm not advocating for censoring at all. I think that it should exist, and I think things like that should be pulled into the spotlight because shitty ideas fall apart under scrutiny. But it's a tool that you got to be very careful with. And yeah, you don't have to go to Afghanistan or Iraq or whatever it is, especially if you're malleable and you're a fucking damaged person and you find those things.
Right.
Yeah. I think the San Bernardino shooters as well never actually made trips or had any connection other than on the internet.
Yeah, I don't believe so either. It was the same thing. That, the husband and wife that were radicalized.
You can find the information, and it is what it is. It's a very dangerous thing.
Yeah, and that, you know, there was a whole lot of, like I said, like community support and internal support for everybody that was involved, and and regardless of what aspect they were involved, everybody was like, hey, the department did a really great job of making sure that if you needed resources were available. Yeah. And no fault to like how the process is done. Like, but you know, we have contracted counselors that are, you know, through the group that the city brings in or the county brings in or whatever, that is covered with your health insurance and it's paid for. So anytime you're involved in like a officer involved shooting, traumatic event or whatever, like it's mandatory. You have to go speak to somebody and then get cleared to come back that, hey, you're mentally fit for duty to come back to work. I can tell you firsthand, 3 different officer involved shootings I've been involved in where I had to go speak to those counselors. They're fucking garbage.
Well, it's also a system you can game. Everybody understands what's going on there and what that, I don't want to call it a revolving door because that's not what it is. It's that person becomes a gatekeeper, you keeping your job and staying on duty. And both sides of those, let's be very clear, both sides of the desk understand what's happening.
Of course they do. But I had a guy. I think it was my third incident that I had, my third shooting, and I was sitting down. I can't talk about like exactly what happened when I'm with the person because I'm under investigation, like criminal and internal. And so I can't talk about the details. I can talk about whatever I'm dealing with, but I can't talk about the details of the incident. So I wanted to chat with the guy about my first one. And well, an incident before my first shooting, I didn't shoot, but I was literally fighting for my life over a gun, and the guy stuck a 40 cal Smith & Wesson in my face.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it was pretty awful. And it was one of those, okay, I can let go and draw my gun and take a round to the face, or I can just shove him away from me. And because my partner was right here and I was between him and my partner. So it was like, all right, I'm taking a round, but I feel if I push him, hopefully he'll jerk the trigger and hit me in the vest instead of my mouth. So shoved him out, and my buddy came out of the holster, hip shot, just lit his ass up, saved my life. But I was, for years, it took me like years to like kind of process, but like I was struggling to kind of figure out like what went wrong and this and that. And I look back now and I'm like, fuck, why didn't I start jiu-jitsu when I started this career? Because I have so many solutions for that fight now, it's not even funny. Yeah. But I didn't at the time. That wasn't in my toolbox because I was like hardcore CrossFit. I'm like, I'm just going to work out. CrossFit's all I need to be a good cop. And no.
You just needed to thruster him to death.
Yeah, apparently. I should have.
God, wham!
It was terrible. So,
yeah.
And I look back now, but
CrossFit's an awesome strength and conditioning program. I worked for the company for years. I've never encountered a barbell outside of a gym. Like take that capacity. I mean, in that situation, though, if you had a barbell, you could have beaten him to death with it. Even though I think he probably could have gotten you with the old snub nose.
Quick draw.
Yeah, that's a great way to train your body, and then you need to layer skills on top of
which, 10 years later,
yeah,
that happened for me. I finally had that epiphany. And
well, at least it only took you a decade.
It took me a decade,
Super quickly.
Yeah, hey, I'm still in there more than Nelson, so.
Yeah, but people who haven't even started jiu-jitsu are in there more than Nelson.
Of course, I can talk shit because we didn't get a roll this weekend when I was here.
You would fuck him up.
If you started today, Paul, not even a chance you'd choke me out.
Yeah.
Even if you started today.
Okay.
It wasn't choke me out, it was tap you.
Okay, tap
you.
I can't remember the famous words, but yeah.
Yeah, but I wanted to talk to that counselor about that incident.
Were they unwilling to?
I told Nelson, I'm like, this dude, not only was he unwilling, he didn't give a shit. He literally was like, hey, so when you're at work, is it like cops, like you're running license sirens, you're like chasing people all the time? And I'm like,
where are you going, Nelson?
I'll be right back.
And
sissy little fucking bladder.
Coffees, bro.
So I'm like in awe. I'm like, what are you asking me? Like you're sitting, like you're not even paying attention to what I'm trying to get off my chest to you here.
Yeah.
And he's totally focused about the Hollywood shit of the job.
And he was contracted by the agency.
Yeah. Well, by the city. I mean, not the department at all. But
he had a contract to be doing what he was doing, though, with law enforcement officers or first responders, probably.
And I've had similar experiences with multiple counselors like that, and similar experiences from coworkers that have been through the same thing, going like, this guy was dog shit. So, of course, what are you going to do when you get that kind of feedback? You're going to go, and they ask you how you're doing. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, do you think you can do the job? Yeah, absolutely, I can do the job. It's like, all right, great, stamp. You're back.
You
you're
have
back
any
to work.
residual issues? Like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah, sure,
no, totally fine. Best I've ever been.
Yep. And then
I always drink a bottle of Jack Daniels a night to go to bed.
Yeah. But the other
it's
concern
just like
too,
vitamin water.
It's not. Yeah. And it's not just like the, the fear of, oh, I may not have to go back to work, but in the law enforcement culture and in the first responder community as a whole, like that culture, there's that stigma of if you can't handle the stress, you're a broken toy. And if you're a broken toy, we're going to put you somewhere where you're not going to be a liability. And then what incentive does somebody have to come forward and go, hey, like, Sarge, like, I'm struggling. Like I that call the other day or that call 3 years ago, like I'm not sleeping. I think about it all the time. It's the stress is manifesting to the point where it's become a physical problem for me, whatever that may be. It's like, and I don't know what to do. What incentive does a guy or girl have to step up and do that? Like, they're like, well, if I do this, I'm going to get punished. Like, that's how it's viewed.
Until they change the policy, there's not going to be an incentive about it.
Well, it's growing now.
I don't know the number of bulletproof superheroes, countless amounts that I personally know that are bothered by the things that they're encountered with or that they have to encounter, I should say, on the job. And this expectation that it's just Teflon, it's all just going to bounce off.
Right.
Until that mentality shifts, and I'm glad to hear that it is shifting, it's a problem.
Well, it's shifting, at least in my department.
That's how it starts, though. One
Yeah.
will build to another, and it's unfortunately not something that's going to be measured in days and weeks, or probably even months.
Yeah.
It can be years.
I am hearing more, like, just with my connections and speaking with officers that have been through trauma and stuff like that. Like, it seems like the momentum is starting to shift in favor of it no longer being that, where you're going to be treated like a broken toy and you can't do the job anymore, and there's no like punishment for, seeking help. And the biggest message to get out there is like, hey, if you're struggling, like, you're not alone. Like, there are others out there, and there's a ton of people that are willing to step up and help you if you need it. You just have to ask.
That's the perfect segue into the hat you guys are wearing. I did look it up. Hookers in Heroes is still available.
Yes.
Because when you were telling me this over
.org or .com?
we can get them all.
Okay. All right.
And we'll do a landing page. Michael will get on that shit. He's a web developer now. He doesn't know how to do it at all, but I'll teach him.
Yeah.
Because it's Hooks and Heroes.
I kept calling it Hookers and Heroes.
Hooker here. You've been wearing the hat all weekend,
Yeah, but
and
I'm
he's
not
been
looking
messing
at
it
it.
up all weekend.
But here's the thing. Which one's going to get more participation? All right?
That's a good point.
Maybe there's going to be some broad crossover of people who would like both.
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge. Some people like fishing. And some
One's
people
probably more therapeutic than the
and
other.
some people like people in fishnets.
Right.
That was good.
So what is it? Hooks and Heroes.
So it's a nonprofit, 100% nonprofit. We're a 501(c). We're based out of Tampa, Florida. Our focus, our mission is first responder mental health support. So going back to what I was saying about the stigma and guys not wanting to step up and in fear of some sort of retribution or something.
Because they have to, and here's the thing, and I hope that people understand this intuitively. Just because you don't want to deal with it directly with the department because if you're worried about the consequences, doesn't mean you don't get to deal with it. It's either going to come out willingly or unwillingly.
Yeah, and what's the trend that we see? It's they drink themselves to death or they eat their gun. They end it in...
Don't forget in combination.
In combination.
Yeah.
I mean,
Most of the suicides generally have a substance involved as well.
we, as first responders, we kill ourselves more than we get killed in the line of duty.
Yeah.
We're our own worst enemy. And it's that cumulative stress, that trauma that goes untreated, that gets to the point where you're like, I don't have an out. I have no help. So I don't want my family to suffer anymore or whatever. I'm just like, I'm a piece of shit. I'm a failure. I'm going to end this. And it's like, dude, like that is... Obviously, that's not the way to go, but there are so many people out there trying to help, and we're just one of many foundations that do it. But our focus, I think what really sets us apart from some of these other foundations, because there's a ton that do fishing trips and hunting trips or whatever, but it's like, hey, yeah, like, oh, cool, you were a part of Pulse and you're struggling, you're having these problems. Let me take you out deep sea fishing. And they're like, oh, man, that'd be kind of nice. That'd be relaxing. It's like, great. All right, cool. Good fishing trip. Here's your pictures. See ya.
Yeah.
Well, what's that doing for the underlying problem? That's not helping him or her.
Short answer would be nothing.
Nothing. It's not even a Band-Aid. You know what I mean?
It's like a momentary escape.
It is for a brief moment that in the long run doesn't actually address the root cause. So how we address it is, aside from your agency, whether you're a firefighter, a police officer, paramedic, corrections, or a veteran, you don't have to go to your department. You don't have to go through your insurance. Either somebody nominates you to us, or we reach out to you, or you nominate yourself and you reach out to us. We, through our donations, we pay for your mental health counseling off the books. And if it's something that's like, hey, this is really successful for you, well, then we'll work to have that counselor work with your insurance to where you're only having to pay a copay. And the only way your agency finds out about it is if you yourself tell somebody. And that's it, because we're completely confidential. We started here in Florida and we're growing. I mean, we're growing constantly. We got guys we're helping out in Texas, guys we're helping out in Indiana, guys we're helping out in Connecticut, guys in Pennsylvania. I mean, we are growing exponentially, which is amazing. But everybody on the board is either a cop or associated with law enforcement or first responder.
Is the biggest fear that they're just going to take your badge and gun?
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, if that was the number one thing you heard, that's what it comes down to.
But also it's happening. Like we talked to Travis at the coffee shop thing the other day, and That's awesome connection. I'm glad you
Oh,
and
dude,
Travis.
that was great.
2.0?
No. Gribble.
Okay, yeah.
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 And he was telling us about California cops getting their stuff pulled.
Yeah. So we call it getting put on restricted duty. So they take your police powers and they put you at a desk job and like we're worried about you.
What do you have to do? Let's say that they do that to you. What would you have? And I'm sure it depends on the department, but let's say you land there. What do you have to do to get that stuff back?
You would have to have one of the agency approved counselors clear you mentally for duty. Yeah.
Because I mean, and the people know that, of course, right? So their fear is that they're going to lose their ability to do their job, which they're, for most people. I mean, obviously, you paint them with a broom a little bit, but they're doing the job for the right reasons, so they don't want to lose their ability to do it. So your choice is, okay, you have somebody who is struggling with their demons, for lack of a better word, that's impacting their personal life, which is then, of course, going to be impacting their professional life, who's afraid to say something, so that actually is a hazard to that person and everybody else that they're serving, or we provide them a mechanism to work their way through it where it doesn't look like it's a punitive measure. Like, to me, I want to take the officer that steps forward and is like, hey, I'm having an issue. I'm more comfortable with that guy having a badge and gun than a dude going, nope, totally fine, and is a fucking psychopath just waiting to break loose.
Yep.
Like, as somebody who law enforcement, like I pay my tax dollars to, be on the receiving end of a help. If I call 911, I'd much rather have somebody respond who is upfront and honest about what it is that they're working their way through and understanding their limitations and being open about that than the dude who's pretending like they're totally fine and they're not. Like, that's what I would want. It sucks that it's just at the end of the day, all right, limited duty, and you have to fight your way back to being able to do any job you want to do.
Like that, our department does a good job, especially over the past few years. If we get that, we have somebody who's been through like a traumatic event or, whatever, like a really, really rough call, we're constantly checking on it. But instead of like a punishment, if they're like a street cop, right? They're like, hey, we're going to go send you TDY to CID to work with the detectives for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. You get to learn a new skill, you get to learn something that's going to benefit you in your career, but we're just going to get you off the road from seeing the shit 12 hours a day, 80 hours a pay period.
Probably a good idea for departments to do just from a professional perspective.
Yeah.
Like, probably not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Maybe every 5 years, take a month off, learn something new.
Yeah. And
like Nelson, he takes
good.
a month off every other month.
It's true.
Not really learning anything new. And he only works
When I go to jiu-jitsu, I do.
You
what is this?
have
How do you
not
tie a
been
belt?
to jiu-jitsu in months.
I have to, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I swear he's going to like kids' classes.
Well,
Watching.
that counts.
I will say
That counts.
his ability to ride that snowmobile has been polished well over the past few weeks.
You know what that takes? Time.
Seat time, bud.
Seat time. Nelson told me that all weekend.
At jiu-jitsu,
You're not a
snowmobiling.
black belt at jiu-jitsu.
I misspoke. Black belt at snowmobiling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And snowboarding. You're pretty
Yeah.
good on that too.
he is.
I was not. I spent, would you say, 99% of my time on my ass or my face going down the mountain.
Snowboarding is a rough
It
journey
is.
for about the first 72 hours, but I've heard you can pick it up. Actually, how does this go? So skiing, you can pick up faster, but it takes longer to master. Snowboarding, you pick up slower, but you can master it faster.
That's exactly correct.
I ended up figuring out heel edge. So I just worked heel edge, regular and goofy foot like the whole way down once I finally got a little stretch.
Yeah.
But by that time I had fallen so many times and I'd already sprained my wrist and felt like I broke my tailbone that when we got down to the bottom of the mountain, Nelson's like, all right, let's do another run up and we'll work toe edge. And I was like,
Fuck you.
I'm tapping out. I was like, I'm done. Dude, I can't. I'm going to call me a bitch, whatever. Like, I'm done, dude. I can't. I'm
Tell
out of
about
my
the
element.
10-year-olds cheering you.
Oh my God.
You don't need to tell me because I know this story.
This was so epic.
Yeah.
I had finally strung together a little stretch, right? I was working maybe like 100 yards just on the heel edge. And there's these like 2 10-year-olds off to the side who had already just been absolutely shredding it.
Yeah, they're just rippers.
I
from
told,
like age 5.
Dude, I told Nelson, I felt like in that movie Talladega Nights, I felt like Ricky Bobby when he's driving real slow his first time back in the NASCAR in the NASCAR and all the cars are zipping by him. He's like, what is that? What is this? Like, there's like freaking 8, 9, 10-year-olds just ripping by me at like 100 miles an hour. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So these 2 kids are standing off to the side. And I'm finally kind of figuring it out and I'm going and I'm not falling. You hear them, they're like, hey, good job, dude. And I'm like, I was like, thanks, it's my first time. And the one little kid's like, hey, you're doing great. And then as soon as he said that, my weight shifted. I caught toe edge and face planted right for the wham. And I'm like, you shouldn't have said that. And they just started laughing. I'm like, oh boy, it was embarrassing.
Up there riding about a week ago, and I'm going to guess the age of this little fucker at between 8 to 10. And it rips by me at a speed that's not safe. I don't care what age you are. And all I hear him trailing off as he's saying is, get out of the way, faggot. I couldn't catch him because I was going to kill him.
Yeah. No, but I mean, even Nelson's daughter rips too. Like she's
Yeah, she's
fucking legit.
got in, born and raised in the backcountry. Of course she does.
Legit. But
Yeah.
Yep, she sends it.
Where can people find Hooks and Heroes?
Hookahero.com.
Hookers in here, HOOKERS.
I still get it wrong. Like
HOOKAHERO. You can find us on any social media platform, on our website. If you are in need of help, or if you want to nominate somebody that needs help, and this isn't just the individual, this is also extended to their family. Like I said about secondary trauma.
It takes a village, man.
It does. Go to the website, nominate. You can put your nominations in there. It'll go directly to us, and then we'll reach out and make contact, and we'll find the best path for you.
All 50 states?
All 50 states. We're expanding as much as we can, and that's, talking to Nelson. I'm going to go back and have a follow-up with the board when we have our meeting later this week about trying to find some resources here in the Northwest to have. And, I think Travis would be another just phenomenal resource to be able to kind of work just to get the word out for both foundations. And honestly, like I said, I don't think this could be too crowded of space. I mean, yes, on the monetary side, like we need money. It costs us, like if we get a $10,000 donation, that gets us to help 10 people.
Yeah.
So it costs money to pay for services that your insurance isn't paying for. It's coming out of our budget, right? And then we do like the fishing or hunting trips too on top of it to do the outdoor therapy and stuff. But
you can nest a lot of things in that outdoor experience. You can really knock on the door for people a lot in those experiences, but it's what you do after, which is what you mentioned. Because you can. I love the veteran community in a lot of ways, and what I'm about to say, I'm referencing a very small and specific group inside of that, and they've become professional veterans.
Yeah.
And they make their living going from fishing trip to hunting trip, and it's like, wow, you are at all of these events.
Yep. But what are they doing to treat the root cause or whatever the issue was when they started?
They're not.
Yeah.
They are. It's about the event, and what it does is it sucks away resources from people who are desperately in need and very likely to never say a goddamn thing.
Yeah.
And it's not all like that, but it's one of the things that I despise most about the community is that there are people who have professionally somehow, they have rigor mortis like this with their hand out.
Right.
And I just want to fucking cut their arm off.
Yeah.
Because one, most people have a good bullshit detector, and eventually you're like, oh, I see what's going on here, and it turns them off to an entire community. Maybe they were somebody who was really willing to help, but they have enough bad touch points, and you're like, I'm actually just going to go somewhere else and help there. And it cuts off help and funding and interest, actually, to a large degree for people who want to direct it into the right place. And having said that, I don't know why those people choose to make those decisions, but it really does detract from the overall greater mission. But there are great organizations that will do those things. Like, hey, we will take you fly fishing, but we're hiding a message in this fly fishing and trying to actually do something more enduring and long term.
We do a lot of decompression with those trips too. It's not just, hey, let's go out fly fishing and we send you out with a guide that you've never met. Like, you're going to be with somebody from the foundation. You're going to be with you, and it's going to be, there's going to be time for fellowship. There's going to be time for just campfire, drinking beer, whatever you're into, right? Whatever the case may be. But we're going to, like, I got to experience it on a turkey hunt in South Florida. And I walked away from that weekend, like, I literally just added family members to my family, like blood. Like, the connections that I made that weekend were so impactful. And it's why I got involved with the organization afterwards and ended up getting invited to be on the board of directors with them. And it is such an important part to feel like you're not alone and that you're amongst like-minded people and you're amongst guys that struggled, went through stuff, healed, and are now spreading the message to help others heal at the same time. And it's like it's really comforting and kind of lets you let your guard down to the point where you're like, okay, like I'm willing to, like, I'm ready to get help. I'm ready to heal. So
I've been through my fair share of therapy, and the least impactful to me has been like the clinical setting across the desk. And I am not knocking it by any stretch. But what I'm saying is, the more creative you get, the more impactful I found it to be.
Yeah, and we, there's different options too, because we have, whether it be telemedicine or in office. Like, my counselor's out of Seattle.
Yeah,
and I live in Florida, but it's all telemedicine.
If you find the right person,
right,
there's a great connection there.
Absolutely.
If you find the wrong person, find somebody else.
Yeah, and we pair up with other foundations. We have we do retreats, like 3 or 4 day retreats, where we get you away from home. You're going to go and you're going to do work groups and all this types of stuff. And I mean, the feedback we've had from some of these trips, actually from all of the trips, is, I mean, I got a call. I told Nelson like 2 weeks ago, or the week right before I came up here. I got a call, and it was one of the guys coming back from one of the trips or one of the retreats, and first words out of his mouth, I was like, "Hey, how was it?" And he goes, "You saved my life."
Yeah, it's
like,
powerful.
There's nothing more I could ever want to hear. No thank you. That's not why I'm doing it. But hearing that, knowing that there's somebody got help, like, that's why we do what we do.
What are you going to do in 5 years when you have the chance to retire?
Well, it depends. If something lucrative comes along,
firefighting,
that I could maintain my lifestyle.
A lot of money playing Xbox online, I hear.
You're right, and working out.
Is Xbox their thing?
I don't know.
You know what, I saw a bunch the last time I was in California? Pickleball. They pull one of the trucks out of the bay, and they're just freaking just getting after it.
They would play something named after a phallic-shaped object, wouldn't they?
I hadn't thought about that, and now I'm going to struggle to not think about that.
I know, it depends. If something cool comes along in 5 years, I'm eligible to retire at 5. But I got a 4-year-old. I love my job. Like, I'm in training right now, so I have a desk job. I literally work out, teach classes, and train jiu-jitsu on duty.
Oh, he's going to fuck you up if you ever roll with him, Nelson.
5 times a day.
You're actually really lucky that you didn't roll with him. Because what he just described is 1 year worth of your training.
Oh, for sure.
And that was a Monday through Friday. That's right, because you work with some black belts and you have mats at your office.
Yeah,
you're so fucked.
I've got 3 black belts in the training unit alone. So it's pretty awesome to have. It's so unique. I'm so lucky. I mean, I had no problem with like the commercial gyms. They were great, but how could I pass up an opportunity for free personal jiu-jitsu? I mean,
convenience is going to trump like going to the gym setting is great. And what I would say is go every once in a while so you'll get a diversity of open mat.
Well, I was trying to this weekend, but Nelson.
I was at open mat yesterday. I didn't see you guys.
Yeah,
we were brapping.
But it's great that you have those the coaches there. Don't discount the value of different training partners.
No, and I you're right, and I don't visit the local gyms enough. I've been invited enough to do it.
I'm not saying you need to do it all the time, but like Gus, as an example, one of the coaches down at SBG in Missoula, if you've never rolled with somebody who has appendages that are that oddly shaped, he's just like a tree end.
Yeah.
Like, it's different. Like, well, that doesn't work. I want to put him in a Kimura, but I literally can't connect my hand. Okay, so what?
Because he's so big.
Yeah, and then like the wee people. I don't know how you're supposed the people that are like, short.
I do try and challenge myself. There's a first responder only jiu-jitsu tournament in Sarasota.
I just feel like that's injury prone. And like I know that the firefighters are at least in red gis or red flare pieces.
Yes, they are.
They're probably dyeing their mustaches red. I mean, and then of course you guys are wearing
they're
a
already
gi. There's a
red.
blue line coming down somewhere on your gi, or it's on your belt. Like,
well, that's why I'm gonna be a forever blue belt, so I can wear a black gi with a blue belt and have my thin blue line. I'm a walking thin blue line.
Would it even be possible to count the number of Punisher stickers in the parking lot at that place?
or the Punisher tattoos on the arms?
Come get it, Mullen Lobby. Take it easy, dude.
It is so
Fucking
funny.
take
man.
it easy.
It is so funny. Oh my God, living their entire life is that. So
yeah.
That's
What else
right.
do you guys want to talk about? We've been at this for damn near 3 hours at this point.
Really,
Dang.
time flies. So
2.5. I don't know. 2:15. What do you guys want to close out? What are you doing for the rest of the trip in Montana? What do you got for the rest of the day?
So we're gonna go over to Nelson's wife's arena with the horses.
Okay.
Hang out there for a little bit, and then I'm going to do a ride along with him tonight. I'm going to ride the streets.
What time are you going on shift?
7 p.m.
I was going to say you can come to Leah's evening jiu-jitsu class, but you'll be busy.
What time's that start? 7?
Oh, it's been a while, hasn't it? 7 p.m., Nelson. Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
I actually could drop you off there if you want to hit the class.
I think that'd be a great idea.
You could
Yeah.
do that, but honestly, if you're going to get some action in Kalispell, it'll be between probably 7 to 9. So you might want to stick with the ride along.
Well, action, it would be more just killing time if I had nothing else to do, riding around with Nelson. But and depending if we run up to the hospital to see that trooper.
Yeah.
But that's an option. We can talk about that.
Then you out of here tomorrow?
Yeah, flying out here tomorrow around lunchtime.
Sweet.
But it's been a good time, man. I got to jump on 2-bear, ice fish, snowboard, snowmobile. I'm sure Nelson probably
all
talked
of
you into a few, what do they call Coors Lights? The Rocky Mountain Water or whatever it is? Yeah.
Yeah. They're a little heavier. It was those IPAs this
Oh,
weekend.
I was just going to say, he's
Just
like,
beat
I
us down.
can't do
Yeah.
those things, man. Those things are so dark.
It was so filling.
He drinks
I
the,
like craft beer.
trying to think of what it's called. It's not Zima, but that's basically what he drinks. It's the,
You're thinking White Claw.
yep, that's exactly correct. Yeah, he drinks the shit.
I have
out
had
of
a
those.
couple White Claws, but that is not the go-to.
Yeah, I'm
Couple is
a
a-
Bush Light guy.
Yeah. What he says, he has had a couple. Let me just tell you, I've seen Nelson have
That's
more than a
my
couple.
Christmas gift from Andy every year with a bow on the box.
Case of White Claw.
Oh, that's great.
So hookahero.com.
Hookahero.com. And then all over social media, same name.
Perfect. Right on. Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
buddy.
Yep.
Appreciate it.